Hello everybody, welcome. I'm the Strategy Professor, and this is going to be an overview of the patch notes for 7.6. It's also going to be a tier list video, and I have a little mini guide that I'm going to pack into the middle of it that is about why utility supports are so strong right now, because I get asked about this all the time on the stream. So you can find this Google Doc in the description to the video, as well as information about other playlists, guides that I offer, and the times that I stream and such. That'll all be in the description, and I'll talk about that at the end of the video as well. But just sort of the overview, we're going to go over the notes first. We're going to go over meta change predictions. We're going to talk about why utility supports are so strong. Got a lot of math, got a lot of explanations. Break it down real nice and simple for you there. Some of the other stuff that's going on in the meta game, and then we'll go over the 7.6 tier list video. And then I'll just give you my thoughts on the top 5 for other roles. And maybe in a few days, I can release individual videos for the top 5s for other roles. So stay tuned for that. That's something I've been wanting to do. And hopefully I can get it done. I'm on spring break right now for school. Well, I'm not really on it. My students are on spring break, so I have a little bit more time this week. So we'll see how that pans out. But let's go ahead and get into these patch notes here. And I've got a lot of League Wikia tabs open, which I'll show you why here in just a little bit. Let's go ahead and get out of that one. Okay, so let's go through some of these patch notes really quick. The patch notes themselves aren't really that eventful, but the meta has changed a lot on the current patch in 7.5, and I suspect it'll continue to do the same in 7.6. And it's gone in a direction, which I'll talk about in the meta analysis, that has really been a bit startling to me. It has certainly hurt my elo a lot. So I have not adjusted to this meta change very well, and we'll talk about why that is. But let's talk about first some of the changes on this and what they could mean, if anything, for the current meta. The biggest one is going to be Galio. And I think I had I've got a tab open for him here. Now, I'm not sure how much Galio is going to shake up the support role. I think he will probably be played a lot more in the mid lane and potentially the top lane, but I think he'll primarily be a mid laner because he scales best off of AP. So let's go ahead and look at him. I did talk about Galio in the last patch, and I did predict that he was going to get nerfed, and they nerfed him in almost the exact ways that I predicted he was going to get nerfed. But I think that he still is really strong. We'll have to see what the release stats are, but if you go to League Wikia, this is a wonderful website, by the way. I use this in almost all of my guides. It gives you really in-depth information about some stats, like really the exact stats that you need to see. Because a lot of these YouTube channels will give you all these like vague random numbers about why something's good or not, but League Wikia is where I go to for my sources for exact stats. My calculations. Okay, so things that have changed. So his on-hit Colossal Smash is still pretty good. It's 100% of your AD, and he has pretty good base AD. So if you think, you know, he's doing 100 damage just for easy math, maybe halfway through or so, that's probably around like level 13 or 14 he'd be doing that. So maybe 90, we'll just say 90 damage. So he's getting 100% extra AD. So you're doing 90 base damage on a hit. You're getting 100% extra AD. So that's 180. And then let's say that you're just level 10. 180 plus 60 is 240. And then if you have 100 AP, that's 320. And then let's say that you have 320. Let's say that you have 50, 50 magic resist. 120 plus 23. That's like 350 damage, basically. Just like an easy scenario in the mid game when you attack somebody, you're dealing about 350 damage. So it's a pretty good chunk of damage that you can hit somebody with. And every time you use one of your abilities, and those are very conservative numbers. If you have a lot more AP or MR, or you probably won't have a lot more AD, but if you have more AP or MR, you're going to be doing a lot more damage. So I think that that's... And all enemies around it. Wow, I didn't read that before. So I wonder what the range is on that. It's probably not much. It's probably like a 200 range. But if people are really tightly clumped together, that could actually be a lot of damage. I don't know the range on that right now. I just noticed that. I thought it was just the person that you hit. Okay. Now, this is something that I'm wondering too. Colossal Smash's cooldown is reduced by 4 seconds every time Galio hits a new enemy champion with an ability. So I wonder if he uses one ability like Winds of War and hits 3 people, does this just automatically come back up? I assume that it's each time he casts an ability, it has to hit a new enemy champion. So he can't, like, in other words, he can't just hit the same person with 2 abilities and get a free refund on his Colossal Smash. And if he hits multiple people with 1 spell, I believe it would only proc it once. It has to be a unique spell and a unique champion. And I don't know what the cooldown on this is either, so how long you have to wait before you can hit the same champion again to proc it. Maybe it's every time you Colossal Smash. So for example, let's say you walk up, Colossal Smash, hit somebody, Winds of War, hit somebody else that reduces it by 4 seconds. Shield of Durand, hit somebody that reduces it by another 4 seconds. Okay? Now you Colossal Smash again, then you can Winds of War again, hit the same person that you originally hit, get the reduction, and so on and so forth. So every time Colossal Smash resets, I would assume that you could hit the same person and get the trigger. But in other words, I think this is effectively probably going to have about a 4-second cooldown. So he should be able to do this a lot in fights. So yeah, pretty powerful passive ability, pretty nice damage. It is melee, so you know, it'll be more of a team fighting kind of ability. Now, Winds of War is still really strong. Now, they didn't touch this ability, which this is the one that I thought that they might be most likely to nerf. I had predicted they would nerf the time on this from 4 seconds. I think I said exactly 2 seconds in the last patch notes before they made this nerf. But they did exactly pretty much what I thought they were going to do. I knew they'd take off something here. They took off the armor. So they reduced this a little bit. They reduced the uptime on this. But they left this intact. And this is why I think he's going to be a mid laner primarily. Because this is extremely strong. I mean, we're talking just the base damage on this. If they sit in the tornado, which it channels for 1.5 seconds. So they're probably going to sit in it before they can walk out of it. That's 105. That's 305 base damage with a 1.0% ratio and a 9% of the target's maximum health. So if this is something that has 200 health, like a 200 health mage, you know, that's 180 damage plus on top of the 305, that's 485 damage with a 1.0 AP ratio. So if you have 100 AP, that's almost 600 damage. I mean, 600 damage on a 6-second cooldown pre-cooldown reduction. So if you get a lot of cooldown reduction, you can get this down to 4 seconds. Very spammable. Oh, and by the way, it's area of effect. So it can hit multiple people as well. So if everyone's clumped up, you have an AoE ability that can do somewhere in the neighborhood of 600 damage in a 1.5 seconds off of extremely low numbers. I mean, if you have like 400 AP off of this, you know, you're talking 800, 900 damage. That's on a 4-second cooldown that can hit the entire team. I mean, that's ridiculous. That's really, really, really good. And it doesn't seem like it has a cap. Does it say cap? Okay, cap to 100 per hit against monsters. Okay, so it doesn't completely demolish Baron. But still, that's 300 damage against Baron off of the cap damage in addition to everything else. So he's going to be pretty good against Baron, too. You're talking, you know, once again, 700-800 damage. Now, Baron has magic resist and all that kind of stuff. But the bottom line is this is extremely good. It has a long range, but you can just do it in melee, too, pretty much. And so you can use it as poke and you can use it as close range. So it wants you to be in close. So if you roll up and hit somebody with one of these, for whatever I said that was, what did I say, like 350 damage, plus hit them with this for 600 damage. It's a really low number that you could get by like turn 8. So you're talking 1,000 burst damage just off of these 2 abilities. And this is going to be on a 4-second cooldown. And this is going to be on a 4-second cooldown soon enough also. So that's some trading potential right there. That's big time. So yeah, that's really good. And then a percentage shield. So, you know, around level 8, we'll say level 7, you get a 14% of your max health. So if you have 1,000 health, you get 140 shield. That refreshes 12 seconds, so it's a pretty long time. But still, I mean, you walk back to lane against an AP champion, and you're basically going to block whatever their first magic damage is. And it's not just the first one, it's going to block the maximum amount. So it's going to block the 14% of your max health. So that's 100, yeah, like I said, 140 if you get to 200 health. Not that hard. If you build him tankier, it'd be, 280. So, and unlike something that just gets popped like a Banshee's Veil or whatever, like I said, this stays on you. Like, it doesn't refresh for 12 seconds, but it does stay on you until you take the full damage. So you can't just pop it with like an auto attack or just, ding you with a very small damage spell or a dot or something like that. So yeah, that's pretty good. And as far as the taunt ability itself, it's really cheap. It's kind of a high cooldown, but you can get this down to 8 seconds with 40% CDR potentially. So it's not bad for an AoE taunt. It's pretty good. I mean, this is something like this basically used to be like Galio's ult in a sense. Like, it doesn't do the damage, but you get big time damage reduction every 8 seconds or so. And you have this additional uptime on it. So begins to charge over 2 seconds, slowing himself by 30%. So that during that 2 seconds, you get this bonus. So if you max this as support, you get a 40% damage reduction. And this is not, like, the only thing that'll cut through this is true damage. Everything else is going to get mitigated. And their spell penetration, armor penetration doesn't matter against this. You get plus 8% per 100 bonus magic resist. So if you just get, like, an Abyssal Scepter or a Locket or something as support, and you'll easily get to 100 magic resist. And that'll turn this into a 48% reduction. And remember, this stacks. Now, it doesn't stack additively, I don't believe, which I talked about in the last video, but it does stack. So let's say that you have 100 magic resist and something hits you for 500 damage. That means that the 500 damage is going to get reduced to 250 damage, and then it's going to get reduced, that 250 is going to get reduced by another, roughly 50%. So it's going to be 125 damage. So basically, you're going to negate, if you get this 100 magic resist, you're going to negate 75% of the damage. So it's not going to be 100, like 50% plus 50% from your magic resist. So it's not going to be 100% negation. So you can't ever be immortal with this. But it can sure feel like it when you're only taking 25% of the damage from abilities. So that's big time mitigation. So he slows himself. So I could see you like engaging with this Justice Punch, doing your Winds of War in an exchange, and then just using this and just hold it for the whole 2 seconds because that buys you time on these cooldowns. Hold it for the 2 seconds and then taunt. And then the taunts all nearby enemies for 1.5 seconds. And refreshes its duration for 2 seconds. So this counts while the taunt is up. So that 2.5 overlaps with the taunt. So basically, it says it can't be interrupted by crowd control. So I think even if you're crowd control, then you can still keep channeling this. So you start channeling this and you walk into a Vhagar cage or something, then it's going to keep going. So you're still going to get the 4 seconds of mitigation. And I think that the cooldown starts, I believe, I don't know if it's after second cast or after first cast. If it's after first cast, then you can get up to a 50% uptime on this. So you can charge for 2 seconds, the cooldown starts, you let it go, and then it would be, an additional 2 seconds, and it's on an 8-second cooldown if you have the CDR, and then it'll be up again in another 4 seconds. Or what's more likely is that you cast this, and then the cooldown doesn't start until you cast this portion, and then still it's going to be up a lot of the time. It's going to be up every 6 seconds, basically. So you're going to have a 25% uptime on this. If it's 2 and 2, you're going to have a 50% uptime on this in a fight. So you're going to be almost unkillable. And you're going to be taunting people for quite a while. So that's pretty good. The range on this, from what I've seen, is very low. It looked like it's like 350 or less. Like, it's a very short range ability. Like, it's not intended to be used as an engage. In other words, it's kind of like a Vi Q, but not. I don't think it goes for nearly as far as Vi, unless they've changed it. I haven't watched a ton of this. I've watched some Galio online, but it looks like it doesn't really have that much range to it. And you can't go through terrain, so you can't jump over walls or through bushes or anything like. I guess you can go through bushes, but you can't go over terrain with it. Okay, and once again, this looks like it has a radius. So it says all enemies hit. So I don't know what that radius is. It could be 1 or 200, like a little small area around where he hits. But it can hit multiple people. So this can hit multiple people, this can hit multiple people, and this can hit multiple people if they're all piled in together. So if you have, like, this guy engages with an Orianna ball and pulls everyone close together, and then you Colossus Smash, Winds of War, and Justice Punch them, like, you're gonna obliterate an entire team. Like, Orianna is already getting pretty good with a lot of the champions out there, and this is gonna be, like, a massacre if this guy rolls in with Orianna, because I think these are probably gonna have pretty short ranges, like 1 or 200, but anyone that's tightly grouped together like that, he's just gonna vaporize them. So pretty good ratio here too. 0.7 is nice. I mean, anything that's like 0.7 and higher is a pretty good AP damage ratio. And what that means, if you're new to the game, that means if you have like 100 AP, this is going to deal an extra 70 damage. That's what the ratio means. So historically, a lot of mages will have like a 0.6 or a 0.7. Anything that's over a 0.7 is generally considered really high. And a 0.7 is considered pretty good. Some mages that are effective and used a lot only have like a 0.5 on some of their abilities. Anything less than a 0.5 is usually considered not really that great for a damage dealer. So like this has a 1.0, this has a 0.4 on a passive. That's pretty good. This has a 0.7, and this also has a 0.7. Okay, so once again, not an engage tool, more of a peeling tool, pretty low cooldown, can hit multiple people, pretty low cost. I don't know the range, but you know, if you're in there mixing it up in a fight, it could be pretty good. I suspect as a support, you would max Shield of Durand probably first, and then Justice Punch, and then your Q. Because your Q has pretty good base damage with that 9% maximum health. Because that's regardless of how much you level it up. That's just straight up going to do 9% max health. So it's still pretty good even if it's only level 1. And it's pretty expensive too as a support unless you get a lot of AP or magic resist items. But who knows, if you want to build him AP, you know, you could max this first. This will be definitely the first thing you max if you play him in middle and top. But I suspect as support you would max Shield of Durand and then Justice Punch and then Q because you want the disruption more as a support. Because you're not going to get a lot of AP. And your role is probably going to be to disrupt and peel for the AD carry. So I think going the magic resistance route would be pretty good potentially. Okay, and then his final one, Hero's Entrance. Really long cooldown is something to notice here. Has pretty long range. So this is going to be a either a peel or a follow-up engage. You can't really use this to engage a lot of the times. So you jump, it's a pretty long distance. It's not quite like half of the map. It's not like a TF ult, but it's pretty dang far. And you hit everyone for a pretty good amount. You knock them up for 0.5 seconds, and if they're in the middle, 1.25. So what you would do, I believe, is you roll in, hit them with the Hero's Entrance, auto attack them with Colossal Smash, Winds of War, Justice Punch, hit him again with Colossal Smash, and then Shield of Durand. Wait on your cooldowns, and then by the time you finish your Shield of Durand, your Winds of War should be back up. Hit him with that, Shield of Durand, Winds of War, Colossus Smash him again, auto attack, or Justice Punch him. So, I mean, that's a lot of damage. A lot of disruption. Now, he does give allied champions his reduction. So whatever it is on your Shield of Durand, that's what he's going to get. That's what the ally is going to get while he's in transit. And he channels for 1 second no matter where he is. And he moves pretty quick once he finishes his channel. So it's not like instant boom, like a Malphite or something. So if you're just standing there and they watch you fly up and then go back down, they're going to have a lot of time to move. Like, it's very telegraphed that this is where you're going to land. It's like a huge circle. So, you know, once people learn that telegraph, it's going to be hard. So that's why I say he should be a follow-up engage. So if your Vi ults onto somebody, for example, then you do the Hero's Entrance. So then it makes it much harder for them to get out because they're going to be held still. Or in a Mumu, ults, like, engages and ults people. Or a Malphite engages and ults people. Or a Hecarim gets onto the back line and ults people. So I think the super combo is going to be someone engages, you cast Redemption on that area, and then you Hero's Entrance. As soon as you hit them, they're going to get knocked up into the air. Redemption's about to come down. You use Locket, shield all of your people right when you land. Do your thing. Redemption's going to land on top of them. Deal that 10% true damage in addition to all the other damage, and everyone on your team is going to be full health. It's just going to be nasty, especially if there's an Orianna ult. Like, just imagine something like a Vi ult. Shen ults the Vi ult. The Vi on her ult. You Galio's Entrance. Orianna puts the ball on you as you go in there. As soon as you land and Redemption's about to hit, the Orianna ult sucks everybody in. And then you just go to work. Like, there's going to be some insane combos with this. Or if the Shen ults you right when you're about to Hero's Entrance on top of, you know, something else. It's going to be crazy. Or Rengar ults, jumps on somebody, Shen ults the Rengar, and then Galio flies in with an Orianna ball. Or they just put the Orianna ball on the Rengar as he goes in. Shen ults the Rengar, he goes in, engages, Ori ult, pulls everybody in, and then Galio flies in and knocks everyone else up after the Orianna ball. Like, he's going to be an awesome wombo combo type of champion. Okay, so a lot of Galio there, but he's going to be the new hotness. Everyone's going to want to see him. Everyone's going to be trying him out. So that's kind of annoying in that you probably won't get to play him a lot starting tomorrow. He'll probably get played a lot in the top lane. He'll probably be banned a lot. But it'll be interesting. So he still has high cooldowns. He has really high damage. He's pretty skill shot dependent. He's super tanky. So he's excellent for long fights. He's similar to Nautilus. I think he's tankier, but a little bit less reliable. I do think, of course, you'd max your R, and then I think it'll be WEQ for support. For mid laner, it'll probably be QEW. Maybe, probably QEW. And I think you're just going to get the standard suite of Redemption, Ruby Sightstone Locket, and maybe Abyssal Scepter. I think Galio will be the best tank support for right now. I think Tahm Kench is good in certain circumstances. I think Nautilus is still okay, but he's fallen off a little bit. I mean, Galio does fix some of the problems that I'm going to talk about here in a second with tank supports in the metagame analysis, in that he is super tanky, so he doesn't need tank items. So he can build the Redemption and the Locket, and potentially even an Abyssal Scepter to help him with his damage, and that's a really good utility item. The problem is it's just not tanky enough for most people. But because his tankiness scales with magic resist, then it makes him a really good candidate, actually, to get Locket plus Abyssal. Because Locket gives a natural, what is it, 60? Yeah, 60 magic resist, and then I'm pretty sure Abyssal gives... They've changed that item around so many times. I think it's something like 50. Let me see. Yeah, 60. So you're going to get 60 plus 60 from Locket. That's 120. And his base 60 is 120, and his base at level, you know, whatever, is going to be 45. So he's going to be getting 165 from two really good items that aren't really that far out of the way. I mean, Locket's really nice. Abyssal is going to be excellent on him. That's a classic item on Galio to begin with. And now this makes it even better. It gives 10% extra damage to you and all of your abilities, which is really good. Gives you the CDR that you need. Gives you the ability power, which he scales really well with. And helps your entire team do more damage as well, because you're going to want to run Galio with things like Orianna, or things like Rumble, or just like AoE type of abilities while you hold them together. And so this is naturally going to be a very powerful item. And that's going to mean your mid laner's not going to have to get this item, probably, unless they really need it for their matchup. So yeah, this is a really good item on him. And so what did I say? You're going to be sitting at 60, 60, 45, like 165 magic resist. If you don't run any magic resist runes and you don't get anything else, you could get a GA also, potentially, after you finish Locket, Redemption, Abyssal Scepter. You just get a GA after that if you wanted to. I mean, you don't have to, but 165 seems like it's easy mode. Locket, Abyssal Scepter, both baller items on Galio, really good for your team, have excellent auras and shielding capabilities. So I think that's really good. And so that would give you Where's my calculator here? So you get 165. You know, it's going to give you 66 extra damage on your Colossal Smash, which is a pretty big deal. Per bonus magic resistance. Okay, so that's going to give you about 12%, 13% on this. That's going to take you up to 40 or 53% damage resistance. That's pretty good. Now it says bonus magic resistance. I don't know if that includes, that may not include your base. It probably doesn't include your base. So if it doesn't include your base, then you're going to get, you know, 40, or you're going to get 8 or 9% extra damage mitigation. But I mean, think of how much magic damage they're going to have to cut through to hit you with that. It's going to be a lot of damage. Like, you're just basically going to be immune to magic damage. It's going to be ridiculous. In addition to your shield that you get here. So yeah, that's the itemization that I think a lot of people are going to go. You're going to go Redemption, Ruby Sightstone, Locket, Abyssal Scepter, and you're basically going to be unkillable. You're going to do a lot of damage. So I think that the uniqueness of his kit and just how much disruption he gives and how much utility he brings to the team is going to make him potentially pretty good. Now, he's still going to have the same problem as some other tank supports in that he doesn't add any amplifiers to AD carries. So he doesn't give the attack speed of a Lulu. He doesn't give the AD of a Janna. His abilities are on pretty long cooldowns, but it is a lot of disruption. He's going to get bullied out in lane probably. But, you know, if you're against something like an Ezreal or whatever, he can also get kited and poked because all of his stuff is pretty short range. So he really wants people to try to get up and try to like fight with him in hand-to-hand combat. So if it's a lot of people that are spread out and just skirmishing, then maybe he may not be as good, but I think he's going to be really strong. Okay, so that's my Galio. Hopefully that's more Galio than you ever wanted to hear about. I think he's going to be really, really good. I think if anyone revives tanks, he's going to be the savior. Like, he's going to be the really good tank. I think Tahm Kench is good in some spots too. But I think especially in just kind of this brawling, just counter engage, just huge AoE team fight type of stuff, I think Galio is going to be really good. Okay. Borderline overpowered, especially for mid lane. I think that he's going to get picked and banned a lot for mid lane. Okay, so let's look at the other patch notes things, though. Okay, Aatrox is just a garbage champion. I really overestimated him last patch, so I misread. I'd never played Aatrox ever, and I'd never seen him, and I thought that his W was on every hit. He got that bonus, healing or damage. It's every third hit, which is awful. And his Bloodwell now, because I thought it was going to stack every hit, and now it's only every third hit you get that bonus on your Bloodwell. So he's absolute trash. Just do not play Aatrox. I don't know how bad he is compared to how he was. It seems like it's even worse now because I think you have to have your Bloodwell full to access his passive, and I feel like before maybe that wasn't the case. So yeah, he's awful. Don't pick him. I mean, if you're an Aatrox fan, I'm sorry, but I think you probably agree if you tried to play him a lot in solo queue. Okay, Cho'Gath, getting a decent buff. I don't think it's going to fix his problems. I mean, it is going to give him about 7% more HP, you know, 260 HP once you get to the 6 stacks later in the game. But his problem, like I predicted on the last patch notes, is that he has really long cooldowns. They're pretty telegraphed and fairly easy to dodge. He has some pretty nice all-in burst damage, but he has huge windows of vulnerability. Like, if you don't have your Screamer, you don't have your Q knockup, you just get kited and killed. So, you know, he could be good in, like, a wombo combo with Galio type of thing, where Galio, you know, flies in or something and Cho'Gath Qs, knocks him up. He's pretty good against resistance, like these damage resistance people, because he has true damage. So, you know, he could chomp and kill a Galio or chomp and kill a Warwick, get through all of their damage resistance and armor and all that stuff. So he could be good against those type of champions. But in general, I think that I think he's still going to have problems. Like, you won't see him in competitive, and I probably won't see him that much in solo queue. Like, he seems like he's okay. I mean, like I said, he might be good, like, mid lane as a counter to Galio, potentially, because of his ultimate, but I don't know. I think he still has a lot of problems with getting kited. Okay, Fiddlesticks. I hadn't even realized they nerfed Fiddlesticks a lot last patch. And I like how they're trying to word it like, we're trying to help you out with your combo by knocking it down to 525 so that when you queue somebody, you know you're going to get your drain off on them. I'm like, no, dude, don't try to spin this. Knocking off that range is awful. I thought it had always had this low range, but I guess at one point it was higher. Anyways, the 50 cast range is good, but he still has a lot of problems. Is this his mana costs are really high, especially as support. His mana costs are high. His cooldown is really long on his ultimate. His Q doesn't do damage, and it's really low cast range. So yes, it is crowd control, but it's extremely low cast range. It doesn't do any damage. It doesn't have any other utility. His E, Bouncing Crow, is just unreliable. The Drain can do a lot of damage if you had a lot of AP, but I just think that you should be playing other things other than Fiddlesticks. He just gets murdered. If anyone rolls up in his jungle, like a Graves or a Rengar or just anybody, they're just going to kill him, probably. So he's just very squishy. He's very hit or miss. So if you don't land your ult properly, or if they hunt you down while you're ulting, then it's just not going to work. So this is good, but I just don't think it's going to be enough to bring him back into the meta. He's got a lot of problems. Gnar doesn't matter. I mean, I don't know why. I don't think it matters. They have the same health regen. Why are they explaining this? Can't safely build the Fury. Okay. I don't get it. Okay, so they're like nerfing Mega Gnar regen, and they're buffing Mini Gnar regen. I mean, that is pretty good base from like 2.5 to 4 per 5. The growth stat's quite a bit higher in Mini Gnar. Dropping it off of Mega. That just seems weird. Now, this is the kind of thing that could be a big deal. He can Q another spell during Crunch's cast time animation. So that means you can, like, quick cast a bunch of spells and not have to wait on the animation. I mean, that could be a big deal. That could be really clunky for Gnar players. So that's the kind of thing where it's difficult for me to evaluate because I don't play Gnar a lot. But my general thought process is that he's still not going to be that great, especially in solo queue. And he's just too hard to play correctly. Like, you really need to be able to time that Mega Gnar. Like, you have to have it ready. And then your team has to actually engage like right when you go into Mega Gnar so that you can knock people in a wall and do a ton of damage. So he's really hard to pull off correctly, especially with teleports. Like, you need to teleport in basically as Mega Gnar, and just like timing that correctly is just really hard to do. Because if you're sitting there and you're about to go Mega and your team just like fools around and doesn't engage, then it's a big problem. And if you just roll up as Mini Gnar with like no rage and start a fight like that, it's going to be awful. So he's just really hard to use correctly in solo queue, and I don't think you'll see him in competitive either. He's just got a lot of problems. I just think there are better tanks, so if, you know, you'll see like more likely to see something like a Shen or a Renekton or something like that. He just doesn't have good synergy with a lot of the good items out there right now either. He doesn't, I don't know. He just got a lot of problems. So this is probably good for him in lane, but overall I don't recommend him. He's really hard to use. There's just easier champions that are more efficient. Okay, Misfortune. I mean, decent buff to her damage on her Q, but I don't think she maxes Q. She might. I don't play her as AD carry that often. I know as support, it won't matter because you just don't, like, you don't max your Q. You just get 1 point for lane harass. And I'm pretty sure that I really don't know. Like, maybe AD carry does max Q. I thought that they would max your W more, because that's kind of your escape and that's your attack speed steroid in a fight. So I don't know. I mean, making the animations to where you don't pause anymore is nice. That'll help sort of escape and just land some of these things a little bit better. Just make her feel a bit more smooth. So that'll definitely be nice. But I don't think it's going to be enough to bring her back. I mean, they just nerfed the items, the lethality items that are really good with her. And they nerfed her early game lane damage. So she's just going to get outscaled by other champions. It's possible that in a wombo combo with Galio or something like that, that she could still be really, really good if you rush Black Cleaver on her. But we'll see. I think she's still kind of a B or a C lister right now. All right, Orianna, the ball stays where it is if the person dies, which is nice. So if you're trying to ult somebody and the person, or if you throw it on the tank and the tank runs in and dies almost immediately, and you try to ult the people, then it doesn't return to you. So that's helpful, especially for kind of newer Orianna players, so that you don't ult yourself. So that's good. Quinn gutted her. This is really bad. So it's only 40% of your total attack damage on your Sky Strike, which takes a lot of the burst damage out of your kit. And the fact, I mean, yeah, they give you whatever, you know, they give you an extra attack speed. I don't think it's going to matter. Like, she's not designed to be, an auto attack champion. Like, she doesn't want to sit there and auto you for 5 seconds to kill you. She wants to fly in, hit you with her R, hit you with her blind, vault, or whatever, and just kill you instantly. Like, that's how Quinn works. So yeah, a little more room for enemy reaction, which means basically she's done. That's her whole thing. And she's very snowbally, and if you don't kill them in one combo, then you're probably going to die. She just can't duel other AD carries or other assassins or anything like that if they don't die very quickly. At least, I don't think so. I mean, you're not going to be building... I mean, I guess you could build her crit or something. That just feels really bad, though. I think you just go lethality, and you just roll up and just try to one-shot people with things like Edge of Night and Ghost Blade. So, I don't know. I think that's really, really bad. I wouldn't pick her anymore after that. She was already kind of a questionable pick, because if she falls behind, there's a lot of problems, but now she's even worse. I didn't even know this, so your cooldown reduction apparently didn't work with your piercing arrow. So basically you could, if you got 40% CDR, you could get it down to 8 seconds. Okay, so anyway, so now they've made it to where, like, the base CD, I believe, is 12 seconds. You can use the CDR to get you down to 8 seconds. And then you can get this for the extra 4 seconds. So you can basically take it down to a 4-second cooldown if you land your Q on someone with Blights, which means you have to auto-attack them first. So the playstyle on Varus is still awful. But my concern here is they're going to bait people again. So what's going to happen, I guarantee you we'll see this at some point. People are going to try to go for Blade of the Ruined King plus Cleaver build or something on Varus. And they're going to try to auto-attack to get these Blight stacks and then hit people with arrows and get the reset on the arrows and just go Hurricane, Bork, Cleaver, or whatever, something Blade of the Ruined King, and it's just going to be garbage. Just please, Rito, just stop. Like, either make the champion viable or not. So, like, what they've done with Ezreal and Lucian and these Blade of the Ruined King changes have just been so frustrating over the last few days. But anyways. Okay, Warlords. This is actually kind of important because now it scales based on your total attack damage. So not the damage that you do, but based on your attack damage. So what happened with the lifesteal is if you hit a tank that had, 200 armor, you would only steal the percentage of the damage that you dealt. So you would steal, up to 50% of the 100 damage you were dealing to the tank or whatever on your auto attack. But now it's based on your total AD. So if you have 300 AD and you hit a tank, even if that damage gets reduced to 100, then you would still, the base would still be 300. And the crit heals, I believe. So if you crit somebody and your total attack damage is 300, that would take it to 600, then it would go to 40% of 600, which is a lot. That's like a 300 heal. So this could be a lot. if it basically bypasses armor on the heal. So this could actually be pretty dang good. So, you know, you might see this on something like a Vayne, just things that don't have really good ways to stack up Warlords, or to stack up Fervor, might run this instead. So I think this is a pretty big buff to Warlords, especially later in the game, especially with crit builds. So people, you know, Caitlyn might really enjoy this, for example. We'll see. They didn't change the teleport. They were hinting they were going to change teleport, and they didn't, to make it more kind of noob-friendly, where it would go to the nearest ward. It doesn't look like that's in here, though. So people were talking about that on the PvE. And that doesn't look like that made it into this patch, so. Now, what are... I didn't look at these bug fixes. What is this? Doesn't look like any of that matters. Okay, that could be really good for Victor if it doesn't fizzle on death anymore. Okay, so the healing off of Knight's Vow wasn't gaining benefit from plus healing type of stuff, so that's good, even though Knight's Vow is still an underperforming item. Okay. Nivea's Q, slow, no longer overrides her R. I'm not sure how much that matters. It could matter. Okay. Fix some interactions causing abilities to do weird things if cast at the same time a spell shield on the user was popped. Okay, yeah, I have seen stuff like that where it looks like the spells should have been shielded or some other things. So I'm not sure of exact cases, but I'm not sure who that affects, but that's a good thing. If they enter... Okay. If a teammate becomes invisible or camouflage while hidden from you by Nocturne's R. Okay, so Nocturne's R actually does spot people, apparently. Enemies affected by Ari's charm during a dash are no longer still able to cast spells during the dash. Okay, I don't get it, but that seems good. Okay, so I don't think there's huge things going on there. You're going to see a lot of Kog'Maws and stuff too, which he's already pretty good in the current meta. What do they give? Renekton, who's already pretty good. Muka Alistar. You might see more Alistar. He's still bad. Superhero Kennen. Still not great, although it could be good with Galio. Okay. Alright, so that's the changes. Not really a huge deal. How are we looking on time here? 43. Dang it, I thought I could do this one quicker. I always think that. But I do want to do a quick section here in the middle. So this is going to be like a little mini guide that I have about utility supports and why they're so strong right now. So this is something that I said was going to happen last patch, and it did, and I think it's going to continue to happen this patch. So, in these meta change predictions, I'm going to talk about just sort of overall what's been going on so far and how I think you could play around that, and then how that's going to impact the 7.6 tier list, which I'm going to get to here in a second. But first, I just want to start with a quick breakdown of why utility supports are so strong right now. So I revisited my in-depth guide about stats and itemization. You can click on it right here if you want. It's a really nice guide. It explains a lot about itemization, resistances, and a lot of other great stuff in the game. It's a little bit of a classic at this point. It's a few months old, but a lot of the stuff that I talk about in there is still very relevant for today. So some items have been nerfed, most notably Zyra Portal is garbage now, and I talk about that a lot in the video. But a lot of the other stuff just, I guess conceptually is very similar. So it's still a great guide to check out. But I'm just going to cover how this applies to utility supports right now. Okay, so utility itemization is extremely strong, and it has been for quite a while. And we'll talk about why I was playing Zyra a lot and succeeding with Zyra a lot despite this powerful itemization here in a second. But this hasn't changed. They're very, very strong itemization. They have buffed Ardent Sensor even more over the last, I think that was 3 or 4 patches ago. They've buffed it twice. They've buffed Lulu several times, and they've nerfed a lot of other champions that are good against those champions, and that really encourage people to play things like Zyra and AP supports for the last couple of months. But what is this? Why are utility supports good right now, aside from some of these buffs and nerfs? How does itemization play into that? Okay, so in these scenarios I'm going to bring up here, my base assumption is that HP equals shield equals heal in a team fight. So most of the time when you throw up a shield, people are going to eat through the whole shield, potentially. So I'm assuming that. That may not always be the same. The same thing with heal. I'm assuming that people are going to go through all of the shield, all of the heal, in the same way they would go through HP. Which, once again, is not an exact analog. It's not 1-to-1. I'll go ahead and pull up this Google Doc here, because that'll be helpful here in a second. Okay, so that means that 1 point of shield equals 1 point of heal equals 1 point of HP, which is equal to about 2.66 gold. And I explain how I get that math and all that stuff in that video. And if you want to calculate sort of partial scenarios, then because I'm going to talk about the maximum scenario, so like the most rosy scenario with some of these items, like if you hit all 5 people with some of them. But if you want to just say, well, what if I only hit 2 people instead of 5, then you just take away 0.2 for each ally. So for example, when I talk about redemption, if you're saying, well, I think I'm only going to hit 2 allies and maybe 2 enemies, then you're going to take the 500% efficiency that we're going to talk about, multiply it by 0.4, you're removing 3 people, so you take off 0.2 per person, and you end up with a 200% efficient item. So even though I'm giving you the rosiest scenario, even if you take it down to 1 and even sometimes 0.1, so it's still going to be 100% efficient even at 0.1 or even at 0.2, which means if you just hit yourself with it and like 1 enemy, then it's still going to be 100% efficient. But anyways, so those are my assumptions, and that's how you work with it. So let's look at these items. Okay, so redemption, and I've got it linked here as well if you want to look at it. Okay, I'll move that over there. There we go. Redemption, it's got all the stats here. We're using League Wiki again. It breaks it down. It explains, you know, the efficiency and the value of all of these things. So redemption has 1917 base value. Actually, it should be even higher than that. I kind of goofed that up in my calculations here. So it should be even more efficient than it seems, because I didn't calculate the plus healing in there, so it should be an additional 355 base stat valuation. So add on 355 to whatever I give it this end number here, and then you'll get it. So it's not going to make a huge number. It's not going to make a huge difference statistically in just how gold efficient this item is. But that is something that I forgot to calculate in the base stats, in which League Wikia didn't calculate in there. So it's not calculating the plus healing that it also gives out as a passive. But, you know, in this video I talk about why plus healing is worth about 35.5 gold per percentage. And I tell you how I get that number. And that's undervalued, by the way. I think it should be worth way, way more than that. But just based on the items that you can get it on and how you derive the base numbers and all that stuff, it's valued in the game at about 35.5 gold per percentage point. So it's slightly more efficient, even more efficient than I'm going to talk about right here. But based on the numbers that I used, so at level 8, we click on redemption, you can see sort of how much bonus you get per level, I think, right? There we go. Okay, so at level 8, it's 240 per person hit. And at level 14, it's 390 per person hit. So those are the numbers that I'm going to use. That's kind of a kind of early game, mid game at level 8, and then level 14 is usually about end game. You know, they change the experience around these days, so you can get to level 15 and 16 a little bit higher, but I just use level 14 as kind of an end game threshold. So at level 8, it's worth 638 gold per person hit. So that's a maximum of 3,190 gold per person hit. At level 14 is 390 per person hit. There's 390 healed, which is about 1037 gold per person hit. For that maximum number. And then don't forget that this healing scales with plus healing. So let's say that you have I just used a Forbidden Idol, which obviously, I mean, I did this math kind of quickly, but if you just have Forbidden Idol plus Wind Speakers, then it's going to give you a 1.18. Obviously, you're going to have the 10% because Forbidden Idol gives you 8%, and then Wind Speakers gives you 10%. So that's why I do the 1.18. That's 18% more healing. Of course, you're going to have, it should be 1.2, but I don't want to redo the math right now in the middle of the video. It should be 1.2. Because you completed the redemption for the 10% healing. So 10, 10 should be 1.2. But even at 1.18, it gives you 753 per person at level 8. So that gives you 3765 max at level 8. So if you hit all 5 people, the healing is going to be worth 3,765 gold. All right, and don't forget that scales with resistances too, which I talk about in the video. So basically, if someone hits you with a spell that, if someone's trying to hit you with magic and they're going to hit you with something with, or let's say that you have a heal for 100 and you have 100 magic resist and someone wants to kill you with magic damage, they're going to have to do 200 damage to cut through that 100 heal because the 100 magic resist is going to require them to do 100% more damage to kill you with that type of damage. So I talk about all of that if you want to see it in my itemization video. But basically, the shields and healing scale much, much harder than damage because it works with resistances instead of against resistances. So I talk about a lot of that in that video. And I think in my last, I think it was my 7.5 tier list guide, I talk about that as well. Let me see. I think I have a good section on that in my 7.5. Let me click, and then I can just direct you over there if you want to see it. Talked about it in one of the videos fairly recently. Return of sustained supports. Heal priority. Well, I don't remember. I guess it wasn't in 7.5. It was in another guide, but it's definitely in the itemization video where I talk about resistances right here, how resistances work. And I know I did this in another guide. Oh, it was in the Janna guide. It was in the Janna guide. But I do explain it right here in this video. So just go through, watch this. I explain how resistances work and why what I just said is true. But I'm not going to spend too much more time. This video is already going to be long enough. Now, don't forget that it also has a damage component. So it deals 10% of someone's maximum health as damage. So 10% maximum health as true damage, not just any damage, but true damage. So how you can calculate that, that's a little harder to figure out. I went ahead and used the Hextech Revolver example. So if we go and look at Hextech here, then this has just an activatable, does damage. It does magic damage though instead of true damage, but this is the best scenario I could come up with of an item that just has activate it, deal damage. Okay, so that's just where I'm deriving this value from. So if we use the Hextech Revolver as an example, and we're just looking at our level 8 Hextech, then you get 81 damage for about 180 gold. So that's just a level 8 Hextech. So you're basically getting 666 gold per person worth of damage. So it's 200 true damage. I say that's worth about 300 magic damage because if they have 50 magic resist, it would be worth 300 magic damage because it's true damage. So that's 666 gold per person. That just worked out to be a strange number there. So the maximum gold value, if you hit everyone with true damage, would be 3,330 gold if we assume they all have 2,000 max health, which is a pretty low conservative number there. So late game, if everyone has 2,500 max health on average, then you're going to be doing 4,163 damage. So at level 8, and it's going to be doing 8,982 gold worth of stats when you combine the damage with the healing with the base stats. Remember, the base stats should be higher by 355. And then you have, at level 14, you're going to be doing 12,198 gold. So I just went ahead and averaged those two, added them up, divided by 2, and that's about 500% gold efficiency. So you add those up, divide it by 2, and then you take that number and you divide it by the cost of the item, which is 2,100 gold, and basically that's 5,000 gold. So that means that what this boils down to is if you buy this item, you are effectively generating about 8,000 gold for your team in a team fight in terms of raw power for a team. That's what that 500% efficiency means. So when you buy this item, you're paying 2,100 gold and you're getting about a 10,000 gold item because it's 500% efficient. So that means just by buying that item and using it in a team fight and hitting, now in this scenario you hit everybody, then you are generating 8,000 gold for your team with one item. Let that sink in for a second. 8,000 gold is a lot. How many kills is 8,000 gold? Let me see. So each kill is about 450 gold. You get the 300 gold off the kill and then the extra 150 for the assist. But let's see here. So let's put it to you this way. That's almost 18 kills. So when you buy this item, if the enemy support does not buy this item, you're basically spotting your team 18 kills worth of combat effectiveness. Think about that. Let's say the scoreboard at about, level 11 in the game or whatever. Let's say maybe the scoreboard looks like it's about even, right? 20 kills to 20 kills or something in a silver game. What would you think if the scoreboard looked like your team had 38 kills against their 20 kills? Would you be like, dang, man, we're really far ahead? Well, that's what happens when you buy Redemption. You're really far ahead, especially if the enemy team doesn't have it. Because the efficiency of this item spots your team 18 kills worth of gold. That's crazy. That's crazy. This is why I'm so fanatical about this item most of the time. That is ridiculous. Now, maybe you're saying, okay, strategy professor, but what's the likelihood that you're actually going to hit all 5 people and all 5 enemies? Not high. I'll admit that. So this is the ceiling. But let's say that you only hit 2 people. Let's say that you only hit the tank who engages, the 1 person who follows up, and the 2 enemies that they engage on. So let's say that it's only 0.4. So let's say we got 0.4. So we're removing 3 people, as I explained up here. So we've got the 0.4 times 500. Okay, well now it's only 200% efficient. So that means that you're paying 2,000 gold. So you're basically generating 2,100 extra gold for your team because it's double the value. So, 200 gold, or 2,000 gold rather, divided by 450. Now you're only giving your team an extra, 4 kills instead of 18 kills. But still, you're spotting your team 4 kills with that because you're generating a lot of extra gold for your team. So that's really massive. I mean, taking Baron gives your team 1,500 gold. So this is like buying this item, even if you're only hitting 2 people against a lot of other items, is still going to be spotting your team like a Baron, like a free Baron kill. Now that doesn't include taking towers and all that stuff. But it's really, really efficient. Even if you only hit 2 people, then it's still 200% efficient. In the dream scenario, you're hitting 500. And remember, this number scales with plus healing. Like, keep that in mind. Like, right here, I just assumed that you had a Forbidden Idol and a Wind Speakers. But what happens if you have a Forbidden Idol plus, or a Wind Speakers plus Redemption plus Ardent Censer, then all of a sudden it gets up to 30%. And then if for some reason you want to throw in a Mikhail's, which you don't have to, but then it can get to 50%. So try adding on an extra 30% here, and you get 650% efficiency. So, I used pretty conservative numbers on a lot of these things. Now, I did say that it hit the maximum number of people so that it makes it really easy mathematically to figure out, okay, well, what if it only hits 2 people? What if it only hits 3 people? You can just do that 0.2 thing that I talked about here to calculate that up. But this is still really conservative, considering that it scales with resistances and it scales with plus healing, and I used really low numbers. I didn't use any resistances in the calculation, and I used really low numbers for the plus healing there in that scenario. So, and I assumed they had really low number with the damage calculation, like 2,000 and then 2,500 mid-game, where you might have some tanks that have like 3,500. So, it is challenging to calculate redemption, but almost any way you cut it, the item is absurd, and it's going to give you an obscene amount of power. An obscene amount of power. Okay, so let's look at some of these other items really quickly. Alright, so Locket of the Iron Solari. Got that queued up here. Maybe. Yes, okay. We have that queued up here. So its base value is 1680. And then its shield is a little bit higher. So it's 315 at level 8 and then 525 at level 14. So I did the math here for you. Base stats, shield calculation, level 14 shield, scales of plus healing. So once again, if we assume Wind Speakers plus Forbidden Idol around level 8, then you're going to get a 4,945 off of the original 4,190. It would obviously be higher if you take the level 14 scenario. This is just with level 8. And so what that becomes, the max scenario, you get, once again, add these up, divide the average, and then divide it by, or get these, add these up, divide by 2, and then divide that number by the cost of the item, and you get the 375 efficiency. And you're just like, well, that's if you hit all 5 allies. So what happens if you only hit 3 people with your shield, then, or maybe you hit 5 people, but they don't, 2 of them don't take any damage on their shield or whatever. It's only effective on 3 people. You just do 0.6, because you're taking out 2 people, so 0.2 per person. 0.6 times 375 equals 225. So then it's only 225% efficiency. It's, you know, once again, that's going to be over 2,000 gold. That's going to be multi kills worth of efficiency. So we've got a 500% gold efficient item. We've got a 375% gold efficient item. Then we have Ardent Sensor. This is a new one. I didn't do this in the last itemization in the link there, but this is something that people were talking about a lot. So I went ahead and pulled up Ardent Sensor. Look at all this. I remembered to add on the 355 base gold efficiency because they don't calculate the plus healing. I do. Remember, plus healing is also undervalued. Then I just used their base numbers here. I didn't use the level 8 and level 14 like I did before, just to make it easier on myself and get through this a bit faster. I just used their base values, and then I just took the average. So this is at level 1, this is at level 18. So I took the average, so, you know, the numbers that I use are about when you hit level 9 or 10 or so. So it's just 1,000 plus 1,750. 1,000 plus 1,750, and then you take the average of that, so that's about 1,375 per person times 4. If you hit everybody, then that is, or 4 people, because you can't shield yourself, so 1,375, or you can't get the bonus yourself if you shield yourself. So it's 1,375 times 0.4 is 5,500. So if you want to do this one, it's not 0.2 per person loss, it's 0.25 because there's only 4 people here. So, you know, if you hit everybody on your team with some kind of heal or shield, then you're getting 5,500 gold. So you take the 5,500 plus the base number, you end up with 7,993. You divide that by the base cost of 2,200 gold, you get 365% efficiency. So not quite as efficient as Locket, and not everybody's going to benefit from attack speed and on hit. So if you know you hit your Ari with part of your Ardent Sensor, it's not going to do that much. Whereas everybody benefits from the Locket, shield and healing, right? Everybody's going to want extra health. Everybody's going to want extra healing from Redemption. So except for, I guess, if you're over healing people, but anyways, this is not as universally useful as shields and heals. But nevertheless, it still is quite nice. And one thing to keep in mind also is Redemption and Locket trigger this ability. A lot of people don't realize that. So if you use a Locket and you hit, you know, all of your teammates, the 4 people that you hit with your Locket shield, they're all going to get this buff. So it may sound really hard, like it's really hard to hit 4 people with healing and shielding abilities with most champions. And so this is an unlikely scenario. Well, if you hit everyone with Locket, that's got a pretty nice range on the activation. Or if you hit everyone with Redemption, that also applies. So, and keep in mind that the attack speed that you get off of this scales with your AD. So if your AD has a lot of crit, if they have a lot of on-hit, like Blade the Ruined King or anything like that, then it's going to scale really, really well. So the attack speed is excellent especially on AD carries or Master Yi or Fiora or anyone else that wants to have a lot of on-hit damage. So, add all that up, that's 365. Cost efficient. Once again, do 0.25 for each person that's not going to be useful. So if you're saying, well, let's say that you only cast this on your AD carry, so you're only getting one person worth. Then it just becomes 91% efficient, I believe, right? Let me see. It doesn't seem like that's... Okay, so 13, yeah, that's not right. Let me see. So we have the base stats are 2493 plus 1375 because you're only getting it on one person. To do that divided by, it's 175% efficient. So even if you just cast it on your AD carry, it's still 175% efficient, which is pretty good compared to a lot of other items out there. And then if you look at something like Windspeaker's Blessing, for example, this is low-key, you know, like the most powerful keystone in the game. I'm pretty sure it's hard to see how you can beat this, right? So the 10% plus healing that you get off of Windspeakers, which I think I have pulled up right here. Yeah, you get 10% plus healing. I have it up here, right? Yeah. You get 10% plus healing and shields. That's 355 gold efficiency. Very, very undervalued. And then you get the bonus calculation at level 8. You get armor and magic resist equal to 348 gold per person. So, where'd it go? Here we go. We'll pull it over here. So you can see level 8. You get 12 armor. It's 20 gold per armor. And then you get 6 magic resist. That's 18 gold per magic resist. I explained it all in my itemization video. That's what those stats are worth. Then if you hit 5 people with a heal or a shield, then you get 1740 gold worth of stats. If at level 14, you're getting 522 gold per person, and you get 2610 maximum gold per stat. So if you take the 2610 plus the 355, you know, you're getting 2965. You can just round it off to about 3,000 gold worth of stats. And remember that the armor scales with other shields that you have. It scales with healing, and it scales with whatever their health is. So there's a lot of scaling with this item as well. But even at level 14, and like a best case scenario, then you're getting 3,000 gold worth of stats off of this bad boy. So really, really powerful. And compare that to Courage of the Colossus here. Let's say, well, I think Courage of the Colossus is really good. Well, let's just see how good Courage is. So let's say that you do it at level 14. That's 42 shield. And then you have 5%, I think I said, of 2,000 health on a support. So that's 100. So you're getting 142. And let's say that you hit all 5 people. So that's 142 times, let's say you get the Miracle Shot, you hit all 5 people with your Alistar WQ combo or whatever. You multiply that shield times the 2.66, because that's the value of shield that I'm using for all these scenarios. So you're getting 1889 gold off of that in the dream scenario, like live in the dream, and that's on a cooldown. This is not, the Windspeakers is not on a cooldown. So, and you might say, well, once again, it's really hard to hit everyone with something to get this max. Is it? I mean, if you just cast Locket on people in a team fight, boom, there you have it. Everyone gets the bonus. So, and how does it say how long it lasts? It lasts for 3 seconds. So everybody gets it for 3 seconds when you Locket people in a team fight. How long does Courage last? 3 seconds. Okay, so same time. So that's 1-to-1. Makes it nice and easy there, right? So you can lock it, or Courage of the Colossus there. So, yeah. So Locket does trigger Windspeakers on everybody. Redemption triggers Windspeakers on everybody. So if you Locket your team, and then you Redemption your team, like 3 seconds apart, which usually you don't time it that way, but you could have even double the uptime as this. within the duration of a full fight. And in addition, if you just do something like a Janna ult and hit all 5 of your allies with a heal off of a Janna ult, then they all get this also. So it's really not hard to get to 5 people, especially with someone like Janna or Soraka, to get this Windspeaker full value. And I mean, even if you're saying, well, you said 2,000 health, and that's a really low number, right? So, okay, let's just give them 50 more then. Let's say 3,000 health. Let's say you're a 3,000 health tank. You would get 150 plus the baseline of 42. So that's 192 times 5, living the dream, times 2.66. Still doesn't do it. It still only gives you 2554. So even if you have 3,000 health, even if you ult into 5 people and CC all of them and get the maximum bonus out of Courage of the Colossus, Windspeaker is still going to be, you know, roughly 20% more efficient, even in like the rosiest of rosy scenarios, than Courage of the Colossus. And so that's a big deal, right? So this is why tanks have problems. Like, and this is why utility supports feel so overpowered right now, is because these items are absurd. Like, they're so good, tanks have to get these items. Like, every tank should be getting Redemption and Locket. Frankly, I'm starting to think they should just all take Windspeaker's Blessing, because look at that. Just, you can Locket somebody and get 3,000 gold worth of stats rather than Couraging. Because let's be real, you're not going to Courage and hit 5 people. Most of the time, you might hit 2. A lot of times, you're probably only going to hit 1. And, you know, if you only hit 1 person here, then it's complete garbage. It's only like 500, 600 gold worth of stats. So, I mean, honestly, on my tanks, I might just start taking Windspeaker, because Windspeaker plus Locket is a massive combo, plus Redemption. So that's how bad it is for tanks right now, that you basically have to pretend like you're a utility support, because these items and that mastery is so good. Those things are so good that there's just no way. And I'm not going to... I do go into some like Knight's Vow and what that's worth and my itemization and stuff. Just trust me, it's nowhere close. It's not even in the same ballpark, because it's not a team fighting item. Like... Okay, whatever. Let's just do Knight's Vow really quick, since I brought it up, because that's something that people talk about a lot. How are we looking on time? We're probably... whatever. I'll just... I'll move a bit quicker through the rest of it. I'd rather give a lot of good information here and just take a bit longer. Okay. So Knight's Vow. I think I did this in my itemization video. Yes. Now they did. Let me make sure they didn't change this that much. Okay, so it's still 12-12. It still is 60 armor basically and 15% bonus move speed. So it's still 400, 600, 10%. Let me see. Base stats, bonus armor is at 60. Base stats. You blah blah blah. I think it's the same. Let's just add it up really quickly. Okay, so we've got the base stats here are 2167. Your bonus is 20 armor. So 20 times 20, that's 400. So you get 400 bonus armor. So that's 2567. I think they just shuffled around the number a little bit, but it's still basically the same. 2567, right? Plus the move speed. Okay, so that is 2567, and I'm calculating the move speed at 600. Okay. So we'll toss this over here. Just to give you an example of a really popular other item. That looks awkward. Let's take that down a notch here. Let's take it down to 14. There we go. Okay. Is that how the other ones look? Yeah, close enough. Okay. So yeah, the base stats, the bonus armor, Let's say 2567, just so it's consistent here. Because they did, like, so basically what they did when they changed this item is they gave you more armor on your base, and then they took away some off of the passive. So they just jiggered it to where you're a little bit more powerful on roams when you don't have your partner with you. So you're not completely worthless, but it still is pretty bad. Okay, and then I go through these calculations. So the passive calculation, the 12% AD mitigation equals roughly 24 armor. That's about 480 gold worth of stuff. The 12% AP mitigation is roughly equal to 24 MR, which is about 432 gold. So that's 912 gold stats for your partner. That scales with other mitigation. It also mitigates true damage, I believe. I believe it mitigates true damage. I'm not 100% about that. I'd have to double check that one. Yeah. Because it's not mitigation, it redirects it. So I'm calling it mitigation, but someone's still taking the damage. It's just coming over to you instead, but that's really hard to calculate. So I'm just calling it flat out mitigation. So even if they hit your partner with true damage with like an Olaf or a Cho'Gath or something like that, that 12% is still going to you instead. So I'm calling that the 12% mitigation. Okay. So it gets mitigated over to you, and then the lifesteal and the spell vamp are both worth about 450 gold. Those are really rough numbers, but that's just the best I could come up with when I designed those stats. There's no base stat for a spell vamp item. All that you have is the rune blade, which has problems with using that as a calculation. And it's important to keep in mind that you get the full effect of this for AoE damage ability. So if you put this on a Rumble or something, if you make Rumble your partner, and he does, 2,000 damage to everybody with AoE, you get 100% healing off of that, whereas Spell Vamp is typically 1/3. It used to be you only got 1/3 of the healing off of AoE abilities. You get the full amount for this. So you heal for the total amount that your partner does, which means that it's going to get really, really good. If you put this on a Rumble or a Vlad or just something that's going to be doing massive AoE damage. But the passive in general is roughly worth about 12 gold. So the total gold value is about 200%. We'll throw that in there. So that's roughly 200%, and that's using pretty rosy scenarios. Like I said, the value can go up quite a lot for the healing. It's difficult to quantify, but, if you put this on a Rumble or something like that, it can get a lot better. But still, it's not even close. Not even close. You have 200% on that one versus 365 on Ardent Sensor, 375 on Locket, and 500 on Redemption. It's just not even close. And yes, like I said, you do have the positive scenarios, right? Where you put this on a Rumble and you're living the dream and you're healing for, like 500 damage in a team fight or something like that. And that's all good. But what about the bad scenarios too? If you're not close to your partner, then you don't get these bonuses. So you can change partners every 90 seconds. That's a really long time. Like, why is it that long? Why can't you change partners every 45 seconds? Like you can do with an Edge of Night or something. I don't know why it has to be 90 seconds. But anyways, you can't change your partner that often. So if you're roaming or something and you're not close to your partner, then this sucks. Then all you get are the base stats, which are, only 94% efficient. So you have to be sitting right next to typically your AD carry in order to get these benefits. So that's the problem, is if you roam around or your AD carry is split pushing or just whatever, it's just not nearly as efficient. So it can be good if you're near your partner, but still, even in its best case scenario, it's not going to be as good as Ardent Sensor, Redemption, or Locket. So that's why tanks have such a hard time right now, is basically they have to build Redemption and Locket. They can't get Ardent Sensor, so they have to downgrade and get a Knight's Vow instead. And that's a downgrade. Don't mistake it. It's a downgrade. It costs more for some reason. It's 2,400 gold instead of 2,200. And yeah, it's a downgrade. So that's why utility supports are so good, is because they leverage the power of all of these items. Like, they don't need to be tanky, so they're really good with Redemption, Locket, Ardent Censer. Ruby Sightstone is also excellent on them because it reduces the cooldown on all of these by 20 seconds, which means these would be, you know, I didn't calculate cooldown here, but you're going to get to use them 20% more of the time. So a really generous interpretation. If you use it on cooldown every time, these would be 20% even more efficient. And it gives you 4 wards, and it reduces the cooldown on your sweeper so that you have better vision control. So Ruby Sightstone, really important, huge deal, good item, synergizes extremely well with all of these things. And yeah, they, like, the Redemption gives the plus healing, so does Ardent Censer gives the plus healing, all of that scales with Locket. The shield from Locket triggers the Ardent Censer. All of them work off of Wind Speakers, so there's just so much synergy between these items. They just interact so well together that it's just absurd. Like, you know, if you're looking at these percentages, and I didn't do a damage item, but just trust me, the vast majority of damage items are 130% or less in terms of their efficiency. Most of them are closer to 100% efficient, and they get mitigated by resistances, whereas these work with resistances. It's rough. So that's why utility supports are top of the mountain right now. They are supremely powerful right now compared to other types of supports. That's a major, major reason why, is their items are just out of control in terms of how efficient and powerful they are. Okay, so what else? That's it for my mini guide about utility supports there. I probably should have just made that a separate video, but I just wanted to put it in here because a lot of people ask me, why don't you play Zyra as much anymore? Or why do you think Janna's so strong? Why do we see Lulu all the time in pro scenes right now? You know, what do you think about Lulu? Well, there you go. That's that's why a lot of that stuff's going on. And this has been going on for the entire season, but it's just been overshadowed because there was so much burst damage and games were happening so fast that you couldn't get all 3 of these items. And people were dying before Redemption could even go off. Like, it was just way more important to have super high burst damage and then take over the game early in patches 7.1 through 7.4. Once they start nerfing lethality, and once they started nerfing all these champions that have really good synergy with Zyra, so you can just do a bunch of AoE damage and blow people up before you know, all of these shields and heals and stuff can kick in, then that's why she was really powerful. But now that it's slowing down, now that the junglers all got nerfed and a lot of the really powerful ADCs got nerfed, and everyone's buying Blade of the Ruined King instead of BF Sword, which delays the games even further, then now you're actually starting to build all of these items, and they're all starting to work together in synergy. You're having the time to set up. You're not going to be punished as hard for playing Janna now, because you're going to be playing with an Ezreal in your lane, or a Lucian who's building Blade of the Ruined King, and they're just not going to have enough power to punish you in the early game for picking Janna, and you're just going to outscale the crap out of everybody because of the interaction with all these items and because of Janna's shield. Or Lulu's shield. So that's part of why they're getting a lot more powerful. Okay, so what else is going on? Alright, so the YouTube propaganda is just out of control. Like, I don't want to blame specific people, but I know it's their job, and a lot of channels, that's how they make their money, that's how they have their notoriety, is they put, you know, guides in all caps, or like, new Korean build, or like, oh my god, new item, and then they post up like 30, 0, and 18 video, and it's really hustled people hard on this patch. Like, sometimes the things that they say are about really good things. Like, I know that Philo in general, I watch his content, I enjoy it, and he did talk about Malzahar really early. So, like, just after I started playing Malzahar, he started talking about how Malzahar could be a good support. So he was ahead of the curve on that one. He was very good. But there are other things, not just him, there's a lot of other people that promote this kind of propaganda, just this hype, just to get people thinking about new things, which is good, and it's fun for the game, but it's bad for ranked. And people were getting really trolled. So a lot of people were very confused after the lethality changes, so no one plays Jhin or Miss Fortune or Varus anymore, although I think they're probably still viable. And everybody's building Blade of the Ruined King, everybody's playing Ezreal and Lucian, people are playing like Nunu in the jungle, like it's all really bad. And I talked about this in the last video, Blade of the Ruined King is a nerf. The changes are a nerf, N-E-R-F. It is bad now on most people, but people just keep building it. Like, the reason it's bad that I explained is champions that want that item, the vast majority of champions that want that item want attack speed. Like, Vayne, Twitch, Kog'Maw, all of these champions want attack speed. and they lowered the attack speed and gave it flat AD, which doesn't make sense, and they took away the dueling potential of it. So it no longer does 10% max health and damage when you activate it, and it doesn't steal any life right off the bat. It does 100 flat damage, which is okay early game, I guess, if you rush it, but it's garbage later in the game. And the item just doesn't synergize with other things. Like, there aren't other good on-hit items, except Kog'Maw will get Gensu's Rage Blade and, you know, some strange cases like that, and Wit's End sometimes, but the most of the time champions don't get any synergy. So it's like, yeah, you might do okay when you very first complete Blade of the Ruined King. The items are garbage building up to it. Like when you come back to your lane with a Bilgewater Cutlass and the enemy AD carry comes back with a BF sword, like they're gonna pound you in lane. But there's just no synergy with Bork. Like, there's no other good on-hit items. So when you get Bork, instead of getting something like an Infinity Edge, then you're falling really far behind. Now, I guess Hurricane synergizes with it. So if you have Hurricane plus Bork, you know, and you're hitting 3 people in a team fight, then yes, it does apply the +8 to everybody. So I guess that's, you know, that's something to consider for sure. But I don't know. I just feel like the plus crit builds are just way better most of the time. But anyways, it is a better item on Ezreal because Ezreal doesn't need attack speed because he just procs it on his Q. So it is better on Ezreal. It's arguably a little bit better on Lucian because Lucian doesn't need attack speed either. He just uses a lot of multi-shots with his passive. So, you know, it might be a little bit better on Lucian because he benefits from the plus AD. So it's okay on him. I've seen people like building it on Ashe now. You've got like Ashe with that plus Hurricane plus Black Cleaver is really hot. I think that's garbage build. I think it's just way too slow and you just don't do enough damage. But anyways, I think that it's okay. But that's just something that's happening on everybody. And Lulu's a big winner here because Lulu gives a lot of bonus attack speed, which I talked a lot about in the last patch, why I thought Lulu is an S-class champion, why she's really strong. Because she gives an attack speed buff, and so it lets people hit more with Blade of the Ruined King, which is a really popular item right now. So that's one reason why Lulu is really strong, in addition to all the itemization things that I just talked about up here. AP supports are falling off pretty hard because of the itemization that is talked about. They're already up against that in patches 7.1 to 7.4. The games are slowing down. People aren't picking champions that are good with Zyra in lane, so you're no longer seeing Jhin on your team, Misfortune, Varus. Like, those champions were very good because they had a very early game power spike. They would get the lethality, Ghost Blade very early. They do a lot of base damage. And if you caught someone with a Zyra root, you know, level 6 and ulted them all in, they were going to die most of the time. Well, now, if you have Lucian or Ezreal on your team, they're not going to be able to do enough burst damage to kill the people that you root most of the time. Ezreal, maybe if he eases forward, has a Sheen, if he eases forward, auto Q, auto, might be able to kill him. But it's unlikely. Lucian is such close range that half the time he can't get in range to do anything when you ultimate level 6. So they're just not as good of a fit as someone like a Misfortune, which is beautiful with Zyra. Although Zyra does have good synergy with Ashe, but if Ashe is building this garbage build now, and she has a Blade of the Ruined King first instead of a BF sword, you know, into either Essence Reaver or Infinity Edge, you're just not going to do enough damage early on with Zyra to get those kills that you need to snowball. Like, either kills for you or kills for your AD carry. And also, Lucian and Ezreal are very good against Zyra. So Zyra, it's really easy to dodge her roots if you can just dash away with a Lucian, or you can roll away with a Vayne, or you can E away with an Ezreal. This is why I didn't play Zyra a lot last season when those champions were really good and popular. Like, Zyra wants to be playing against slow, immobile champions like Jhin, like Misfortune, like Varus, where if you catch somebody with your roots, they're going to die. They're not going to be able to get out. So that's a big problem. I mean, if we just look at my match history here, and I'm going to try to play Zyra more, but it's really hard. I mean, she had been the one who was doing very well for me this season, right? So I was at 57%. At one point, I was up to 65% with her. But if we look at my last week, it's rough. I'm 2-9. I'm 18%. So on a champion that I had been 60% with over about, you know, 250 games, 250, 275, all of a sudden I'm 18% on patch 7.5. And a lot of that has to do with just the way that she's fallen out of the meta for the reasons I just described. And finally, because the games are slowing down, you're not getting a lot of early kills, you're not able to snowball as much, people aren't picking snowbally champions like Kha'Zix and Rengar, and just people were picking a lot less damage. That means that these utility supports are getting to kick into high gear. You know, once they get their Redemption plus Locket, and they just naturally have like big shields and healing, if you're Janna or Lulu, it's just almost impossible to all-in burst somebody. So, you know, if you have something like a Liandry's and Sork Boots against a Lulu that's going to have Redemption, Locket, and just her ultimate. I mean, Redemption and Locket combined together are 4,300 gold. Liandry's is 3,100 gold. So you're not going to even be able to complete your second item. You're going to have, you know, if you're going Liandry's Void Staff or something, you're going to have a Liandry's, a Blasting Wand, and an Amp Tome. And they're going to have Locket and Redemption for about the same price. And you're not going to be able to cut through that. Like, how do you cut through that when they Lulu ultimate the person that you just ulted, they lock it to shield them, and they have, you know, an incoming Redemption on top of them in 2.5 seconds, and they throw their normal E shield on him. Like, there's just no way you're cutting through that as Zyra early on. Or not early on, but in the mid game. Or Janna's even worse because she can ult also and give a whole bunch of healing. So this makes it really, really hard to cut through. And even if you hit multiple targets with Zyra's ult, like let's say that they just don't even see you throw your ult, they don't expect you're going to ult, even if they don't get off Locket, they're still going to throw a Redemption on top of everybody and shield and heal a bunch of stuff. It's really, really hard to kill people as Zyra in the mid game if you're not like really fed against a Janna or a Lulu because of these items. So it's rough. It's really rough. And the tank supports are still in a bad place for the reason I just described. Their itemization is terrible. You basically have to build them utility. I think legit, I'm not even kidding, I think you should get Windspeaker's Blessing on tanks now after doing this analysis. Like, that's how bad it is. You have to get Windspeakers even if you don't have any other shields or heals, as stupid as that sounds. Like, let's say you're a Nautilus, you maybe should still get Windspeakers because of its interaction with Redemption and Locket. Like, that's how obscene it is. And you have to build Redemption and Locket. And the fact that everyone's building Blade of the Ruined King is already bad for tanks, because now you can't even build health, because they're just going to shred it, because everyone's buying this item. Lucian and Ezreal are both very difficult to lock down with someone like a Nautilus. So that's another double whammy. There's just so many bad things against tanks right now. They don't have any steroids. So yeah, I mean, yeah, you're going to be able to get the Redemption and the Locket and the Windspeakers and stuff like that, but it doesn't have as much synergy as Janna and Lulu. You don't give anyone bonus AD. You don't give anyone bonus attack speed in the case of Janna and Lulu. And obviously, since you don't have heals and shields, the plus healing and shielding and the Windspeakers is not going to affect your other abilities. So it's basically like you're just an imposter. You know, you're like a wannabe utility support, basically, because that's how you have to itemize. You're a wannabe utility support that might have some better crowd control, maybe. I mean, Lulu and Janna have really good crowd control. But because you have to buy these utility items, you still can't engage. I mean, if you engage into a fight as a Nautilus and your only item's going to be Redemption, you're going to get, like, evaporated. Because it doesn't have any MR on it, doesn't have any armor, it has very low health. It's not an amazing tank item, but you have to get it. And so, if you're going to play a tank, it needs to be a utility tank. So something that does some really neat things, so that are helpful. So like a Tahm Kench against an Ashe, or Galio, because he's just is naturally very tanky with his taunt. And he has a lot of crowd control, and he just is probably going to be overpowered at the start. So those are the two that I would recommend. I mean, maybe Thresh. I don't always recommend Thresh. I did move him up on the charts a little bit this time, because at least he has a hook. So he can, or Blitz, potentially. So they have hooks. So they can at least pull people in, initiate fights, and they can build all of the support items, because they're not having to dive in and get blown up. They can just hook and peel and do some other interesting stuff. So you know, I think that the diver tanks are in a big trouble. But if you are going to play a tank, if you do like tanks, I highly recommend either Tahm Kench, Galio, Blitzcrank, or Thresh, because they're kind of the safest ones, unfortunately. Nautilus is still okay. He's really powerful, but I just haven't had a lot of success with him. I'm sitting at about 45%, which, to be fair, is a lot of my supports are kind of around there. But I was much higher with him last season because the itemization was just much better with tanks. So I was a lot higher with a lot of things last season. So I'll get my mojo back. It's just going to take a little bit of getting used to it. Like I said, Zyra had been my mojo, and Janna's still doing very well. But anyways, I think Crit ADCs, I think they're going to come back. I think they're the best ones right now. Just once people get tired of losing with Ezreal and Lucian, then they might come back and actually play the good AD carries. We'll see. Sorry if you like those champions. I've had a really rough stretch the last week, and I've seen those champions on my team almost every time. So I think the true powerhouse ADCs right now are Caitlyn, Jinx, Twitch, Draven, and Kog'Maw. Now Kog'Maw is not a crit champion, but he's really good right now too. So once you get these triple crit, right, you're just gonna murder these Bork users. So when you get your Infinity Edge plus your Phantom Dancer plus you know, whatever, a rapid fire cannon or something, you're just gonna crush people. Or Hurricane, or just whatever. 3 crit items, 2 crit items plus Infinity Edge's crit. You're just gonna absolutely blow people up, especially when you start getting attack speed from Ardent Sensor or Lulu buffs or whatever. It's going to be a crush. So I'll go ahead and just crank this down there a little bit. There we go. Oh, that works out really nice, because then that's when my my little mini guides stop. Anyways, so yeah, I think those are really good. I like Draven, a good Draven. I think Caitlyn is the safest, best AD carry right now. Twitch and solo queue is also very good. I like Jinx as well. Kog'Maw can be very strong, but people are very confused about his builds. I see people rushing like Bork on him, and I don't think that's what you should do. But I'm not an expert on Cog. I just think that rushing Bork is basically just sacrificing the early game and just saying, you know what, there's no way we can fight in lane. And that just feels bad to me. What are people building on Cog? I know that they build like Gensu's Hurricanes. Kog'Maw. Oh, I need pro builds. I need pro builds. Let me see. I mean, maybe it's possible I'm wrong here. Everybody gets Bork on him. This feels bad. What's Cutie? I trust Cutie. In Cutie, I trust. Ability power. Okay, I mean, that's okay. Okay, so he goes Gensu's into Wit's End into Hurricane. I think Hurricane should be second. I think it's just a question of whether you rush Gensu's or Blade of the Ruined King. Depending on how much you can stack it up. Hurricane helps stack it, I believe. Maybe it's just basic attacks. So I don't think Hurricane procs basic attacks. I don't know. Anyways, I'm not exactly sure what to build on Kog'Maw, and sometimes he is really powerful, but other times he feels like he's just falls behind a lot early on. Yeah, so the vast majority of people build Gensu's plus Runins, but a lot of people are rushing Hurricane instead right now, which I think is just really bad. It just doesn't give you enough attack speed for Kog'Maw. But anyways, whatever. Kog'Maw's okay. He's okay. He's really strong late game, obviously, but if you rush Bork, you're hurting yourself a lot in the early game. Okay, so I think games are going to continue to slow down. Everyone's rushing Bork. It sucks early game, so that means that the scaling champions' utilities are going to be better. Graves, still 100% must ban. Overpowered jungler. He's one of the few, like, really strong burst champions left. Elise is also pretty good in the jungle. Getting a lead early is still pretty important. Okay, let's talk about the tier list here really quick, and then we'll see if we can do this in about 20 minutes or so. This is longer than I thought it was going to be. As always, it's always longer. But my hair is looking lovely. But anyways. Okay, so the new tier list, I think that Lulu, Janna, Nami, Soraka, those are going to be the strongest ones right now. I talk about that quite a lot. In the last video, let me just look up Lulu really quickly here. Oh, not Lululemon. Lulu League of Legends. So yeah, so she has great early game aggression with anyone who gets the attack speed. This is actually pretty good picks damage. That's a total of, you know, if you're level 8 or so, that's 57 extra damage on hit, which is pretty nice. Plus 15% of your AP bonus magic damage. Is that based on your level or the level of the person that you put it on? I don't know. Either way, pretty good. It's an extra 50 damage on hit. Unlike a Janna shield, though, that does not scale with critical strike, and it doesn't do extra damage to tower, so it's not as good as a Janna shield and the bonus AD that you get. But it's pretty good as the game carries on. I mean, at level 14... excuse me. At level 14, you're going to be getting 93 damage on hit, which is pretty good. Okay, so she's got the nice slow, and then you've got... you can level this to level 3 in lane if you want more damage, or you can level your shield for better mid-game power. The W, very powerful. This is one of the things that helps her scale the most. So when you level this up in the mid-game, it's going to be plus 45% bonus attack speed, which is tremendous. That's really, really strong on all these champions that are getting Bork. That helps them out a lot. And it gives them the move speeds. They can kite and run around, and it lasts for 4 seconds, which is pretty big. You can also polymorph people for... you know, up to 2.25 seconds, which is a huge deal. When that assassin's jumping in to try to kill your AD carry, you just crowd control him for over 2 seconds. Big deal. Very cheap, but pretty short range. And then finally, your shield, obviously great harassment early, and then transitions into the mid-game quite well to form some great shields. And it gives you true sight. Okay, and I'm pretty sure this works on Twitch, and let me click on it and just see if it'll tell us. I'm pretty sure this works on Twitch and works on standard sight, items, unit reveal, true sight. I'm not sure. I think this would reveal a Vayne that's going invisible and rolling around. I know it will reveal Twitch if he's trying to go invisible and you put the E on him. I think it might reveal Vayne. It might reveal Akali. I'm not sure. Oracle, because it's classed area reveal, unit reveal. Okay, that's one for the Reddit forums. I'd have to look it up. I'm not going to look it up right now. But either way, that could be a nice bonus. It's definitely going to reveal Twitch because he's camouflaged. It'll definitely... Eve can't re-stealth. And I think it might reveal a Vayne who's trying to roll around. And it might reveal something like an Akali or a Kha'Zix if you put it on them. I double check it for... Well, whatever. I'll just look really quick. Here we go. Effects that grant unit vision but not true sight will still debuff invisible enemies. Okay, invisibility. It says stealth traps, items, vanish. Invisibility detection. Okay, that's old. It says right here, champions with invisibility can only be revealed by turrets or true sight. Champions with camouflage. In order to camouflage. Camouflage are temporary, revealed within 700 units of a champion, are within Control Ward or Scryer's Bloom. Okay, so those only outline camouflage. True Sight. Okay, I mean, everything that I see here will still debuff invisible enemies. It says that things that give True Sight reveal invisible enemies. So I'm pretty sure that that means that if you put this on a Vayne, or if you put this on a Kha'Zix, or a Shaco, or just anything else that's trying to run around and be invisible and just be a pest, that you can actually hunt them down and kill them. So that's just kind of a nice bonus of her E. So basically, she's extremely powerful with because of her scaling, because of her crowd control, because of her early game harass, and just because of some of these other nuanced little tricks that she can do, such as revealing a Vayne, a Shaco, Kha'Zix, and just other type of Twitch, other type of pest, invisibility type of champions. And I've got a guide here. If you click on this, I have this for all of the top, I think, 14 champions at this point. I give you a quick overview who Lulu's good with. So she's good with Vayne, Twitch, Kate, Olaf, Hecarim, Yasuo. Good against Malzahar, Fizz, Rengar, Kha'Zix, and so on and so forth. Recommended items right here. I can go ahead and take the Astraces off of those. That's definitely what you should be building. Recommended runes. You can go a more aggressive build if you want to go dual penetration reds, health yellows, CDR blues, and then like flat AP quints. I've been having some luck with that as of late. And you definitely want to go wind speakers. So just no Thunderlords. Just do not do it. Just go wind speakers, because of the reasons I just described. Thunderlords does give you some power in the early game, but it's just not worth losing those stat bonuses once you start getting Locket and Redemption. So she's extremely strong. I mean, another thing that I mentioned with Lulu, or I maybe failed to mention, is you speed people up a lot. So if it's like a Hecarim or an Olaf that's trying to run in, you give them that 30% attack or movement speed. Then that helps with engages. This is why you see her in pro play a lot instead of Karma, because she just scales a lot better than Karma. She has the crowd control, she has the synergy. Later on in the game, if you need to put the picks on attack speed based champions, that's really strong. Or you can put it on your ally and get them to engage a lot better. So she just has some extreme utility, very powerful, #1 support right now. Okay, number 2, Janna. I have an entire Janna guide. I'll link the Lulu, the Janna, and the Zyra guides in the bottom. I'm going to do more guides soon, but I'll link those in the description. But Janna, very strong as well. Go ahead and click on, let's go to the main page here, and I can just go back and forth on some of these champions. I'm not going to spend a ton of time on these because I talk about them every patch, basically. A lot of these same people are near the top, and they have been for quite a long time. In terms of solo queue support. So Janna is very powerful, especially because of this shield, and I talk about this at length in my Janna guide video. But basically, adding this bonus AD of 40 is absolutely astronomically powerful on AD carries, especially ones that build crit. Now, these on-hit champions that build Blade of the Ruined King, it's still pretty good, but it's a lot better on crit because obviously that 40 damage can crit. So anyone that's going to be getting Hurricane, crit type of builds, she's very strong. She's very, very safe, and that's a difference between her and Lulu. Lulu's kind of safe, but Janna has much faster movement speed because of her passive W. She can knock people back and peel them off with her Howling Gale, and she can knock a lot of people back and heal your entire team with Monsoon. And she scales better with the Redemption Locket build because the extra plus healing benefits Monsoon, whereas it does not benefit Lulu's ultimate. That just gives a flat health, it's not healing. So, she's probably better in a team fight with the healing and the disengage. Her Q has a bit more utility than Lulu's Q outside of lane. This is a very, very powerful ability to stop movement. She lets people kite backwards pretty easily by giving them that 8% movement speed. So she's a lot better at peeling and protecting, and Lulu is better at engaging and crowd controlling. And Lulu has a much more harass early on in the game. So I win a lot more with Janna for whatever that's worth, historically. I'm working on the Lulu. And I think my KDA is pretty strong with Lulu. Like, I usually do quite well. I've got about a 4 KDA with her. But you just don't convert it to as many wins as Janna. So, I don't know. Janna, very, very strong. Really good with champions. Another thing is with champions that have abilities that do AD damage. So Lulu's ability, that extra attack speed, is really nice if your champion's going to be auto-attacking a lot. But if it's something that uses abilities, then they'd rather have the bonus AD ratio. So if you're shielding a Graves, for example, he's going to want to have burst all-in damage, or a Riven, or a Yasuo, or like a Jhin. It's not very good on Jhin, but champions that want that extra bonus AD to scale their abilities up, she's really good. Caitlyn, for example, with her headshots or with her ultimate, the shield is really, really good with those. With her Q, she has some pretty decent burst damage with her burst headshot mechanics. So she's probably better than Lulu with Caitlyn specifically, but she's really, really strong. So definitely consider picking up Janna. There's going to be a guide in the description, like I said, for her. And if you want to see the little mini guide here, click on this. We'll get out of that Lulu guide. So good with matchups here. Recommended items, the same thing I recommend on every support that's not named Zyra, basically. Runes, masteries. I like having the CDR. You can just go all flat health if you want, and then just armor. A little bit of movement speed helps you get to where you need to be. You shouldn't be taking a lot of hits anyways, but it is nice to have some armor. But I like to have a little bit more mobility in the mid games. That's why I run for the move speed. Wind speakers, of course. Then we have Nami. I think Nami's an up-and-comer. I moved her up the list quite a lot. One reason that I like Nami is she's pretty good into Lulu. You can out-harass Lulu early on. You have really good disengage with your wave. You can catch people out. She's good at layering crowd control, so if someone else hits... let me go ahead and pull up Lulu here. If somebody hits crowd control, like let's say that a Vi ults somebody, then you could follow up with your bubble really well. So she's really good at chaining crowd control together, or with like a Caitlyn. If Caitlyn hits a trap, then you can bubble them. Jhin hits a W on somebody, you can bubble them. You can just bubble straight out of nowhere and do a lot of damage. And the thing about her is she is very powerful at trades early on, so you can really abuse Janna and Lulu in the lane. You can't fight her back. And especially because people are getting Bilgewater instead of BF Sword, then she's a lot more relevant in the lane than she used to be. Because it used to be whenever people get BF Sword, you can't really trade on the AD carry anymore because they're just going to hit you too hard. But if they go for things like Bilgewater or Vamp Scepter early to get that Blade of the Ruined King, well, you can still keep trading. And then you're relevant into the mid game, 10 to 15 minutes while you're laning. So lanes are extending. People aren't breaking lanes as fast as they used to. People aren't getting as much damage as they used to. And that means that Nami has a lot more real estate in the bottom lane, has a lot more power. That is her power, is the early game trading. So you just walk up, auto, wave, auto, and they're not going to be able to trade back with that very long. You're going to run them out of lane. Lulu doesn't have any healing, so she's really vulnerable to poke champions like this. Nami and Sona are both good against Lulu. I just think that Nami just has more crowd control in her kit. The E is also very good with Ezreal because his Q procs it, so that lets Ezreal keep chasing and kiting, which is what Ezreal wants to do. So back when Ezreal built Frozen Fist all the time, this was kind of overkill in his kit. Hopefully my hair does it look too ridiculous? It's just moderately ridiculous. That's okay. So the E is actually pretty good with someone like Ezreal, just so that they get that extra slow, they can keep kiting, they can keep attacking. Pretty good with Vayne also. So it's really hard to think of a support that's good with Ezreal. There's a lot that are just kind of okay, but his kit is just so weird. He doesn't synergize well with a lot of stuff. But Nami's pretty good because you can bail him out. You can stop him from getting harassed down early. If you hit someone with an Aqua Prison, he can at least Q him typically. He might even be able to ult him later in the game if you Aqua Prison into your ult, into his ult. That's pretty good. And she just has a lot of slowing and kiting, which is very good. So I think she might be the best support with Ezreal. So excellent early game. She falls off a little bit later. She doesn't offer quite as much utility as someone like Janna and Lulu because she doesn't have any steroids. So she doesn't give any bonus AD. She doesn't give any bonus attack speed on her abilities. She only has one healing ability. Like, this doesn't scale with anything you're going to get. So, you know, she's okay. So she falls off a little bit later in the game compared to a Lulu or a Janna, but she has a much stronger early game, and she does offer a bit more consistent kiting with her abilities. And she has a bit more of a wombo combo of feel to her, right? So you can wave into an Amumu ult or like Aqua Prison into wave. So she has a little bit more wombo combo crowd control type of abilities than some of the other supports. So pretty good, particularly with AoE teamfight type of team comps. So pretty good, pretty good. And then I've got the guide there that you can look through. It's going to be the same thing, Redemption Locket and such. And then I just talk about how she's pretty much good with Ezreal, and she's pretty good with things like Vayne and Twitch and that type of stuff also. Soraka is another one that people ask about quite a lot. Soraka can be quite powerful, but she has virtually no crowd control. She has the silence, which is okay, but it doesn't hold people in place. And so if you have a very vulnerable AD carry like a Kog'Maw or a Twitch or something like that, then they could just bum rush and kill them because they just run straight past you. So you have to have a good front line to help you peel. So you need a tank top lane, almost certainly, if you're going to run Soraka. And you need people to disrupt and peel because you can't do that. But if you have a bunch of tanks on your team and they're peeling and disrupting and you just get to run around and heal the whole time and no one ever touches you or the AD carry, then she's the best healer in the game by far. She scales very well with all of the plus healing. You get extra healing off your star call. Obviously, your W itself heals and your wish heals for quite a lot. So she has a lot less utility. Like, she doesn't have peeling. She doesn't have any steroids for your AD carry. She doesn't really have much crowd control except for the silence, which is good in some circumstances. Most people will walk out of it before it roots them. But she does have a ton of healing. She forces a stalemate bottom lane. So if they have a very aggressive like poke lane bottom, like they have a Sona, Caitlyn or something, and you have a Vayne, and you're just going to get massacred bottom lane, then, you know, if you need to pull out the big guns for healing, then she might be a good option. Although I still think Nami is better because Nami has a heal and disruption. Soraka is the premier big-time healer in the game, so she can be pretty good. And if you go Ruby Sightstone into Redemption into Warmogs, I think that gives you 3,000 health. I'm not sure. It depends on what level it is. But that is a build that can be a little goofy, but it would give you a lot of survivability, and it would give you that extra healing that you need later in the game, so you can just keep spamming your heal and you can just keep sieging. So I don't know if I recommend that build. It might still be better to go Ardent Censer, but it's definitely on the table if you're, you know, under duress, if people are diving you a lot. It might be possible to go for, you know, like I said, the Redemption Ruby Sightstone into Warmogs. Let me look and see really quickly about that interaction. So it gives 800 health. How much does it cost? It costs 28.50 gold, so it's kind of efficient. And 650% gold, 640% gold efficient if you get that passive. It does have cooldown reduction. Wow, I didn't realize they put that on there. That might be a decent build. Every half a second. Jesus. Yeah, I mean, that could be really good. It is. Some people say it's counterproductive to build health on Soraka because it takes 10% of your max health to do your stuff, which is true, but it does protect you against burst damage. So let's see. So if you have 800 health there, I think Ruby Sightstone will give you 500. So that's 1,300 health. And then Redemption... So that's 1,300. Where's... Come on. That's 1,300 health. I think Redemption's 300. 1,300. 1,600 health. So then your base health just needs to be 1,400. Where is... 1,400, so... It's around level 13 or so. You might be able to, I mean, you might have to buy one more ruby crystal in there somewhere to get that up there to get the final amount. But that is, or you could I mean, you're running health in your runes too, so you're getting 72 health. So instead of needing 1400, you'd only need 1300 with the 72 health, flat health from your yellows. Yeah. You might be able to do that. I mean, that would be around level, like, 13, maybe 11? That's about halfway through. Yeah, so I mean, around level 11, which is when you'd buy that item. So I haven't done the entire math, but if you go health, seals, and then redemption, ruby sightstone, warmogs, you might have the 3000 health, and you might be able to finish that around 12 minutes, or not 12 minutes, level 12, you know, maybe around 25 minutes into a game, and that would be some really powerful sieging right there, because you can just like stay out of combat. Because if you heal somebody, I'm pretty sure that's not in combat, they have to actually hit you. So if you just stay out of combat and just run around, you can just kind of perma heal people. I want to try that out actually. That could be really, really good on Soraka. If that build's actually quite strong, and you do get the 10% CDR, which is really nice too. And the plus healing that you get from Warmogs would obviously scale with your other plus healing and wind speakers and all that stuff. So that could actually be pretty good. It could be pretty good. But Soraka is quite good into Lulu and Janna because she just out-heals them. She outscales them. If they don't kill you later in the game, you're just going to win the attrition war because she just heals so much. And she scales better than any other support with all of the plus healing and the locket and the redemption and all of that stuff because she has 3 heals, 3 different forms of healing. So she is a pretty hard counter to all of these champions. So that could potentially be quite strong. And then following, so these are all really good. I'm not sure of the exact order. I feel like Lulu and Janna are at the top, and then Nami is sort of a special case with people like Vayne and Ezreal, who have a weaker early game. And then Soraka is potentially a sleeper-ish kind of counter to both of these champions, although she's a lot more dangerous. And then finally, we have, or not finally, but next we have our tier 2 champions. I'm going to speed up a little bit just so we can keep this around 2 hours and not go too far over here. Zyra, she's the one that's going to be most noticeable, and this is going to make people sad that I have her at tier 2 now, but she's just fallen off a lot. Like I said, you don't have the synergy with other champions that can blow, so you can't blow people up as early as you used to be able to do it, and because games are going slower, then these utility supports are going to kick into high gear. Games aren't going to get closed out fast enough, and once they get their redemption and locket, it's just almost impossible to beat them in team fights, especially if your team doesn't have damage, which people just aren't picking a lot of damage champions right now. You know, you don't see the Kha'Zix, the Rengar, all that kind of stuff nearly as much as you did in the past. And then, so I think she's fallen off a lot. She can still be really good. I still recommend her for gold, silver, and bronze, playing a lot of Zyra, because you can capitalize on people's mistakes a lot, and sometimes, you know, you just aren't going to be able to get to the mid game to, you know, capitalize on the Lulu, the Janna, and the Nami. You're not going to get the redemption locket before someone's AFK raging or your team is like down 20 kills or something, because bronze games just accelerate so quickly a lot of the times that it can be really hard to make comebacks with these champions, and Zyra is the queen of comebacks. So I think that she can still be really good, and if someone still picks a Jhin or a Varus or whatever on your team, then you could still pull out the old Zyra. But I would say definitely, if you're like mid-gold or higher, just proceed with caution with Zyra. I think that it's a lot tougher than it used to be. But I still do like her, and I still will play her some on stream. And I have some VODs saved up from her glory days, so if people still want to see her, I'll still definitely release content for her. But just proceed with caution a little bit. I think the ladies up here, the good girls, are starting to outshine the bad ones a little bit. I guess Lulu, I'm not sure if she's good or bad, but I think she's good. I think she's just weird. She's like that good girl that's just kind of weird that is cute. But, okay. So then we have Tahm Kench. Now, Tahm Kench, I'm putting him up here because if you need a tank, he's a special case. Because he's really good against Ashe. And I think people might start playing Ashe more. So if you see Ashe in your game, you should highly consider picking a Tahm Kench. Also, like, he has very unique properties about him, where he can get things like Redemption, Locket, Ruby Sightstone, and still be okay later on in the game. And you can actually get Wind Speaker, and it's not like ridiculously awful on him, because that extra 10% healing will affect your gray skin regeneration that you have. So Could be good. I mean, hey, heck, maybe even going Redemption Ruby Sightstone into Warmogs. I mean, maybe that's a new thing people should do. It's just, since the armor items are just so garbage, maybe people should just be rushing Warmogs more. This is something that I'm going to have to think about. I mean, that used to be a huge noob trap, Warmogs, but the fact that it seems to synergize so well with just the timing of the Ruby Sightstone plus Redemption, and then you need that third item. The Warmogs does allow you to rotate quite well because you heal a lot. So you can just go from doing a team fight, winning a team fight in middle, by the time you run over to Baron, maybe you were 50%, now you're 100%. Or you clean up the Baron, and as you're rotating over to take mid tower, then all of a sudden you're at 100% health again because of Warmogs. So in a game where people are running around and it's a constant clown fiesta, and you're just bouncing from battle to battle around the map, maybe Warmogs is okay. That 10% cooldown reduction is also pretty good. That's another problem, is it's hard to get cooldown reduction as tanks. So I mean, you'd have to give up Locket, which is bad. But maybe that's a substitution for Ardent Censer. I don't know. It feels like that might be bad on a lot of tanks, but it's on the table. It's on the table. I think that it could be good with Soraka, and maybe it's good with other champions as well. But I'm just not entirely sold. Like I said, it gets to 640% gold efficient healing. It's just like insane if you're rotating a lot. So on Tahm Kench in particular, this might be good because you can rotate really easily with your R. So if you win a team fight bot lane and there's some crazy stuff going on mid lane, then you can actually rotate over there once you heal. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting, and it's very good for sieging. So if you take a little bit of poke in a siege, you just back up, just wait, 8 seconds or so, and then go back in. So I don't know. I think it's good on Soraka, potentially. It might be good on some other champions as well, as a substitute for Ardent Censer if you have to play a tank. But I don't know. Either way, Tahm Kench is good. He hoses a lot of champions. He hoses Ashe, he hoses Leona, hoses Thresh. Anyone that wants to use crowd control, he's going to be very good into them. And I'm going to make an entire Tahm Kench guide. He's my next on my list. I might be able to do it tomorrow. I just want to try to get this video out and published tonight. So I think if you're going to play a tank, he's probably the best one right now, situationally, into, those type of crowd control champions. Now, he's not great against a Lulu or a Janna. Like, you're not going to be able to get on people and deal damage. But if they're doing, crowd control to you, then he can be good. So primarily is Ashe. He's an Ashe counter. Okay, Blitzcrank, very good against these squishies. So I have him ranked pretty highly. I have him over Nautilus at this point because he doesn't have to go in. He doesn't have to go anywhere, so he can't get blown up as easily as Nautilus. So, if you hook a Lulu or a Janna or a Nami or a Soraka and you pull him in, there's a good chance your team could blow him up. Now, once again, he's going to suffer from the same problem as Zyra in that people are going to build, Blade the Ruined King first, which means they're not going to have any burst damage. So if they go Blade the Ruined King into Hurricane or something on whoever they're building, then they're just going to have no damage for the first 20 to 25 minutes of the game. So that means you hook someone in and you do your full combo to them, and they just might be able to flash and get out. So that's bad for business for Blitzcrank. But still, if you land enough hooks, even though you may not be able to one-shot people, you might be able to run them out of lane, and it can be good. So he's particularly good with something like a Caitlyn, because Caitlyn can throw a trap right under where you knock someone up, and that's enough to hold him in place and blow him up. So I think he'll still be good with crit champions or anyone that builds a BF sword first, but he might not be nearly as good with these, rush Bilgewater Cutlass type of champions. Probably pretty good with Lucian. Lucian has a lot of high base damage, but overall, he's good. I will do a Blitzcrank guide eventually at some point too. And I've got a couple of Blitzcrank videos I want to upload on the channel, but you can check that out in detail if you want to look at this. Talked about Galio extensively early on in the channel. I think he's going to be really good. His main problem is he's going to be banned and he's going to be picked top and mid lane. Maybe even jungle. More so than support, so you might have a hard time getting a hold of him. But if you do pick him, I need more practice with him to see, but I think he can be strong. So I'm putting him in a little bit under Kench and Blitz because he has to get in there. He has to get dangerous. And it's not as obvious where you would pick him as much. I do think he's going to be follow-up engage. It's possible he could even be up here in the tier 1 I just don't know because I haven't seen him yet. A lot of it's going to depend on those ranges too, like how far is the range on his passive, how far is the range on his Justice Punch, where he hits a bunch of people. I just don't know because I haven't seen it. But speculatively, I think somewhere in tier 2 is probably appropriate for now. And then, you know, we'll see. Maybe next patch he'll be in the tier 1. Okay, Nautilus, very good, but just he's going to be squishy because you have to build those support items that I talked about earlier. So he's good, has a lot of crowd control, but people just aren't going to have enough burst to blow someone up, and you're just going to get blown up over time. Everyone's buying Bork. That's bad for business. So Nautilus is really good. I like him. I know we have Nautilus people on the channel. If you want a disruptor, engage, support, he's the best one in the business still, but that's just not a good business to be in right now, unfortunately. But he can be good. Sona, you might be wondering why is Sona not higher. Sona is really good in silver and bronze if you want to play her a lot. She does have good harassment. She just doesn't have as much synergy, as much crowd control, and as much synergy with plus healing items as other champions. So Nami, for example, has very similar harass in lane, but she's got a bubble that she can use and her ultimate. They can both disrupt, knock up, crowd control people, and she has a more consistent slow that she can use. So Sona can buff everybody with her W shield to give everyone the Ardent Censored procs, which is really nice. But you're already going to be doing that a lot in team fights with Redemption and Locket anyways. So the Sona is good, but if you pick Sona, I would pick her with a Wombo combo team composition, sort of why I would pick Nami too. I just think Nami's a better version of Sona most of the time. But, you know, if you have a Misfortune or a Kennen or maybe a Graves or a Rumble, she's really good with Rumble. Just being able to hold people in place with that ultimate and just have them layer on those area of effect abilities can be quite strong. So if you have one of those, Misfortune, Rumble, that type of stuff, then Sona can still be quite a strong pick. Karma, I'm not a huge fan of. I've talked about Karma a lot. She is still good enough to be in the tier 2. She's strong, but the problem is you need to group up, use your mantra to E, engage, fight, and that just doesn't happen. There's just not a lot of 5v5 fights that happen in solo queue. It's mostly skirmishes or somebody gets caught out or you're just rotating around the map. So she's okay, but she doesn't. Her shield's pretty weak if it's not mantra'd, and it doesn't give any steroids. So it doesn't give the plus AD that Janna gives, and it doesn't give the plus attack speed that Lulu gives. So that's problematic. And she doesn't have any healing, so she can get poked out by someone like a Nami in lane. Nami will brutalize her in lane typically. And Soraka is just going to negate her early game and just heal through anything that she does. So I just don't think she's as good as the top 4. And she just doesn't have as much obvious synergies as someone like a Sona in a Wombo combo type of team comp. So she's okay. She has good poke early with her Q. She can, you know, crowd control people with her W, although it's delayed. But, you know, the main reason you pick her is in a competitive environment or really high elo like Challenger where you have 5 people grouped up and you speed everyone else up with that shield to engage, you fight, boom, it's great. But if you can't do a lot in that 3-second window and people aren't grouped up, then she falls off big time. Okay, and I finally brought Thresh up here too. It's been a while. I think he is definitely getting better. And the thing is, you need engage right now. And there just is not a lot of good engage out there that people were picking. You know, you're seeing the Graves jungle a lot. You're seeing just all kinds of goofy stuff top lane that can't really engage. Like, Renekton's good at engaging, but someone like a Fiora top lane or a Riven, it's harder to engage. So this gives you that pick potential. It gives you the hook. And he's pretty good with the Redemption Locket Ardent Sensor because he doesn't have to go in. He can just throw hooks, flay, knock people back, just use his R for disengage, use his Lantern to disengage. So he's basically a utility support that has engage. So he's like Blitzcrank, but he has a little bit more peel and a little bit less burst and all-in, which is fine because remember, people aren't going to be bursting and all-inning anyways. In solo queue as much because they're going to be going for the Bork builds. So I think that Thresh, he's not going to scale as hard as someone like a Lulu or a Janna in lane because he doesn't have the plus attack speed or plus AD, but he can start fights, whereas these champions by themselves can have a hard time starting a fight. Lulu can start if you W someone on your team, but if your team just needs engage, if no one has a champion that can start a fight, then Thresh can be a pretty good option there. So he's okay. He's definitely better than he was because of the way things are changing. There's less all-in, there's less burst, and games are just slowing down, so it gives him more time to collect souls and to just get a bunch of items. and to really close out games with his hooks later. And the fall of Zyra helps a lot with this too. Just people aren't going to pick her as much. AP champions just aren't nearly as good as they used to be a couple of patches ago. So all of these things help out Thresh. And I added a Thresh guide there for you. Okay, so good picks, but often outclassed. Misfortune can be good, but once again, you're not going to be having a lot of burst champions. Was picked primarily to counter Zyra, but she is good at setting up Ashe arrows, at least in professional play. So if Ashe is coming back, Misfortune might be a decent pick. A lot less people are going to be building Black Cleavers. You can get Cleaver on her, help your team out. She's a good wombo combo, so if you have a Jarvan or a Cannon or something like that, she can be good from a really safe long range. So Sona and Nami are good kind of at closer ranges. Well, Nami can still hit from long ranges with her wave. But yeah, she's okay. She's just kind of squishy. People are playing less burst champions though, so that's good. And they did just buff her Q, so it does more harass in lane. So if you need a bit more damage on your team and you need some AD, perhaps, maybe you have, a Galio top lane and an Orianna mid lane and a Gragas jungle, so you have 3 AP, you want a little bit more AD, she could be a decent option bottom lane. That's not impossible. Like a couple of patches ago, you'd say, what, 3 AP on your team? No, that doesn't happen because everyone picked AD, but now it might be a real thing where you get 3 AP on your team, so she can be a good place to balance that out and get some more AD. Malzahar, I have him on here. He's good for picking off comps at higher level play if people are actually follow up on your ult. But he suffers from the same problems as all of these other AP champions in that you're just not going to do enough damage to get through the utility supports a lot of the time. They're just going to heal through whatever you're going to do, and you're just not going to scale as well. Now, you can build utility. In fact, it might even be better at this point if you go for Locket Redemption Malzahar and just accept the fact you're not going to do a lot of damage. But you're not really picking him for team fighting. So you're picking him to pick people off and to kill them. He's really bad at team fighting, actually, because people can disrupt what you're doing. They could counter it. And so in a meta where there's going to be a lot of team fighting, with Lulu, Nami, Janna, Soraka, all these champions buying the Redemption, Locket, Ardent Sensor builds, and games slowing down where everybody's getting Blade the Ruined King and Hurricane type of stuff where they want a team fight, it just isn't the meta for him. So I really like him. He's fun, but I just don't think this is his time. You're just going to have to wait till we get to more of a pick comp type of meta. But in certain comps, yes, he could be good. He is good like with Ahri or against Ahri, who's becoming very popular. All these really mobile AP champions he can be good with, but I just think in low elo you're just going to get frustrated because you're going to ult people and you're just going to watch your allies sit there and do nothing, and then you're going to die after it finishes. That's my experience with him a lot. So, and I play at platinum level and people still don't follow up. So right now I play at platinum. I was diamond last season, but anyway, so that's a big problem. Vel'Koz is okay. He's kind of a counter to Zyra is why I played him a lot, but he has the same problem as other AP supports. He's just going to get outclassed by the utility supports with their Redemption and Locket builds later on in the game. He does the true damage, which is nice against tanks, but he's just not going to scale as well. Brand, same deal. Brand does a little bit more upfront damage. You really have to pressure and kill people early on, and you can do that because everyone's going to be getting their Bilgewater Cutlasses, but just remember your AD carry is also going to be getting Bilgewater Cutlass, so don't expect much follow-up. If you want to play him, I think that someone like Lucian could be pretty good with him. But overall, I think Brand just has a lot of problems. His damage is unpredictable. He does have high burst, but he's just not going to scale as well as utility supports. Cho'Gath is support. Interesting. At least he has really high burst, single target burst damage. The true damage is going to be really good for cutting through someone like a Galio, cutting through a Warwick, that type of stuff. So, because that's going to bypass all of that damage reduction they have. So he could be good. He does have some decent crowd control with his Q and his W, so high burst damage. He might even be the best burst mage right now. It's bold to say that over Zyra. I still think Zyra's probably better. But because of his unique strength against Galio, we'll see. We'll see. But I've tentatively got him here. I don't think he's going to make a huge splash, but he could be okay. He just kind of suffers from other tank AP champion type of stuff that he's just really not that great with Redemption and Locket. Although he is very tanky. Like, naturally, he has a lot of tankiness about him. So, he's okay. Morgana, you know, she's okay. She just doesn't bring enough to the table. Like, the Black Shield's good. I would just prefer Tahm Kench. Like, you can use Morg against an Ash Arrow if you want to as a counter, but... And she does have some Initiate with her Q. If you land a lot of Qs, you can play her. Otherwise, I would pass. You just have 2 dead skills. Like, your W really doesn't do much, and your ult is just too close range to really leverage a lot of time. So, no, she's okay. There are better choices. Zilean, good champion in the right hands, but he's kind of burst damage early, and he doesn't have a lot of utility later. Like, he doesn't have any heals, so he's not going to scale nearly as well with Redemption, Locket, Ardent Sensor. It's not going to work nearly as well with him. So I think if you're going to build him, you have to go all AP, and you have to get a lot of kills early on. Like, he might be good with a Wombo combo once again if you double bomb somebody, and that leads into a Misfortune ult, or a Jarvan ult, or a Rumble ult, or something like that. He could be good in a Wombo situation, but other than that, he's okay. He's middling. Trundle, good at breaking tanks, but everyone's building Blade of the Ruined King anyways. Tanks aren't super popular to begin with, or overpowered in many circumstances, in most cases. I mean, Renekton and Shen are pushing it, but Trundle just has a nightmare of an early game, and he just doesn't scale with Redemption and Locket that much. Ziggs, AP champions, in a bad place. He's okay at pushing lanes. I just don't think it's where you want to be. Veigar can blow people up, single target, if you're building AP, but you're going to be really slow to get all that AP versus mid lane Veigar is just a lot slower support, and you just don't synergize with a lot of great support items. Alistar, he's okay, has the same problem as other tanks. I think that Galio, Nautilus, Tahm Kench, all of these are better. I think that Galio and Nautilus in particular are much better engaged tanks than he is right now. Doesn't synergize very well with a lot of other things. I mean, if you roar in the middle of a fight, you do get an extra proc of Ardent Sensor on everybody potentially, which could be good, but that's just kind of a goofy item to build on him in the first place. Braum is okay. I mean, he is good with Lucian in theory. I just think that tanks in general just have a lot of problems, and I just think if you want a peeling disruptor type of tank, I would just go Nautilus, Tahm Kench, Galio, something like that. So, I mean, Braum's okay. Like, he's good against Ezreal. You can block his ult. I don't know. He's okay. Leona, I know a lot of people like Leona. She just doesn't have synergy with the best items. Engage, you're just going to get blown up if you get Redemption or Locket. If you don't get Redemption or Locket, then your team's going to be really far behind in team fights. She can't really build Ardent Sensor. I mean, she has nice crowd control, but she's got some problems, and a lot of it's itemization. Lux, long cooldown on her Q, decent burst damage, doesn't have synergy with good items. Malphite, at least he has an ultimate that's meaningful, like instant, you know, knock people up, so it's possible Malphite might be a better tank than this. I have played him once in a sub game, and he was okay. But, I mean, if you Redemption and then ult, knock everybody up, do your, you know, just do your full combo, he can be good potentially. But it's kind of easy to outplay a Malphite ult with a Lucian or an Ezreal. They can both flash or dash out of it, or a Vayne. So that makes it kind of tough. Wukong's similar. He's okay, but since they nerfed the lethality items, it's really hard to use him as support. He's going to get beaten up early. He's not going to scale as well as the utility supports. But I do like Wukong in the jungle. I think he's a great initiator, and I kind of like him top lane. So the nerfs to lethality hurt him, but I think he's still pretty good. These other ones, I'll just let you look at. You know, I'm not going to talk a ton about them. We've got Skarner, Annie, Teemo, Nasus, Bard, Rammus. I don't want this video to be longer than 2:30, which is very rapidly getting there. So they're okay, but they're underpowered in a lot of situations. The notable ones, Annie, Zyra just does what Annie wants to do better, more reliable, more poke, better utility with her plants. So Annie's okay, but Zyra's just better. Teemo, interesting, but you'd have to build him AP, doesn't have synergy with a lot of great items. Going to get outclassed by utility supports. Bard, I do hear about Bard a lot. The problem with Bard is that his heal is really weak. He doesn't have a lot of utility later in the game. I mean, his ultimate is really nice. It's on a long cooldown. It's hard to coordinate it with your team. If you have a duo or something and you can rotate around very well with his magical journey and pick off a lot of people, then maybe he's good, but I wouldn't play him in solo queue. If you have a duo, maybe. But I just feel like there are better choices out there. Taric is another one. Gets bullied out early. He does have some crowd control. Everything's just on too long of a cooldown, 15 seconds. Yeah, you can reduce it with your auto attacks and stuff, but he's very dangerous. he's going to get hit a lot, and he's just not going to be tanky enough, especially if you have to build Redemption and lock it. So I don't know about all that. Scion, he's okay. I mean, he has a lot of disruption. He's going to fall off a lot later in the game. Doesn't synergize with good items. Ivern's okay. It's just the other utility supports are just better than him most of the time, I think. I mean, his Q is cute. He doesn't have any steroids on his shield. It does slow people, which is nice. Let me look at Ivern really quick before we head out. Daisy is good. She's very disruptive in team fights. And getting a Morellonomicon is nice on him. Like, he's an excellent jungler right now, I think. But... Wait, he got changed in 7.5? What? I don't remember him getting changed. Was it a bug or something? I don't know. Anyways, I think that you can't really leverage his passive that much unless you go invade, and you need smite to go do that. So you need to like invade, counter jungle, smite. And yes, exhaust did fall off, but it's still something that you want in lane. So if you feel like you can go invade and counter jungle a lot with smite, and you're in a pushover lane, like maybe you're against a Soraka, Ezreal or something, maybe you can do it. Pretty long cooldown on his root. A 2-second root's pretty good though, with some decent damage. Bushmaker is interesting. I mean, like with Caitlyn or something, or Rengar, it has some good synergies, but it's okay. It's not super amazing. The shield is really low. It does do magic damage, which is nice. And slowing them for 2 seconds, which is nice. This is what you would level in lane. It's on 8-second cooldown, so it's pretty decent range. 8-second cooldown. Pretty low mana cost. It's just a low number. I mean, it's 190. Janna and Lulu both shield for 240. It does have a built-in slow. And it does do magic damage, so 70% ratio on it too, and an 80% ratio there. So if you're getting a lot of AP with him, it could potentially be good. Daisy does a pretty good chunk of damage. She's very disruptive. She has a lot of health, especially if you keep shielding her. A lot of uptime on her. I just think he's just better in the jungle. Like, he could be an okay support, but I just think you're just better off going for one of the 4 S-class utility supports. But, you know, he could be better than I think he is, especially if you can counter jungle a lot with him and just bully out like in a Moo and just go take all of his camps. And you're against like a Janna Ezreal lane. Like, that can be pretty impactful if you do that. So you should rush like mobility boots and just go run and try to do that a lot. But, you know, you're going to be out of lane if you do that, which means your AD carry is going to fall behind. You're going to miss the experience from the lane. You're just denying experience from their jungler. So he's interesting. He might be cute to try out in a normals, but I think a lot of times you're just better off picking one of the ladies up here if you want a utility support that's going to be good with the heals and shields. Yeah, and then these other ones are okay. I mean, Shin support could be okay. Gragas support could be okay. I haven't looked at them in depth. Those are probably the most viable ones that I've never tried before. So that could be interesting. Top 5 of other roles really quickly, and I need to get to the stream. I'm like an hour and a half late on the stream. But I think top lane, best champions, Rumble, Shin, Renekton, Fiora, Galio. Jungle, Graves, Ivern, Hecarim, Wukong, Gragas. Mid lane, Katarina, Anivia, Orianna, Victor, Swain. And AD carry, Draven, Kate, Cog, Twitch. Bunch of things that can use critical strike I think are going to be really good. Mid laner, I think that Katarina, her cleanup ability is super powerful. I think Anivia is actually quite good. Games are slowing down. That gives her time to power up, get all of her charge items going. She's really hard to siege against. She's really good in a siege. So I think she's excellent, especially in a meta where everyone's playing Lucian, who's awful at sieging, and Ezreal, who's not that great either. So I think that Anivia is really good right now. I think Orianna is going to have a lot of synergy with Galio. She has a lot of synergy with Hecarim. And just a bunch of these dive champions that want to go in. Once again, games are slowing down. She's an excellent late game champion. That's great. Victor, excellent scaling. Pretty good harass early. Strong. Swain, pretty resistant. I want to put like Vladimir in here somewhere, but Vladimir is actually pretty hard to play. I think Swain's just a better version of Vladimir for solo queue. He's safe, he's kind of tanky, he does some kind of decent, respectable damage. He's just a good disruptor in the mid and the late game. Jungle, Graves, still super overpowered. I think that Ivern's really good. Like I said, games are slowing down. The utility champions are very strong right now. You know, we're getting the protect the cog or protect the Twitch or protect the whatever 80 carry comps are coming back, and Ivern is key to that. So I think if you have a Kog'Maw, if you have a team that has like Ivern, Lulu, Kog'Maw on it, it's just really hard to win, you know, past 20 minutes. So I think that he's an integral part of a lot of those types of compositions. So he's really, really good right now. I think Hecarim's still good, very powerful, scales very well, works into the late game. He kind of has a bit of a problem against all the powerful utility supports because you can just heal and shield through a lot of his damage, but overall pretty good. I like Wukong, great engage, great for wombo combos. And then Gragas is a good tank in the jungle that has magic damage and has some pretty good disruption. So I think Gragas is starting to get a lot better too. And then top lane, Rumble, ton of damage, very oppressive early lane, very good against Shen and Renekton early on. Excellent team fighting later on, especially if you can hold people in place. Like an Anivia or an Orianna plus a Rumble ult is just devastating. So there's just no one else up there that can bang with him early on. Because they've nerfed all of the lethality AD items so much, but they haven't nerfed AP items. So he's the premier AP damage bully champion top lane. So I think he's quite good. And then Shen, very good, great global presence, great scaling, great disruption. They were going to nerf him on this patch, but they didn't. So I still think he's a premier tank top. Renekton, excellent, good early game bully, good team fighting damage, very disruptive, very tanky, good sustained damage, excellent with the utility supports. A lot of high damage output. Fiora, premier assassin, great at breaking tanks. Well, not assassin, but like sustained damage champion. Great at breaking tanks, good against Renekton, good against Shen. And then Galio, we'll see. Oh, actually, I need to put Galio in here. We can do Galio instead of Swain. Let's be bold. Let's put Galio up here. Maybe even better than these two. I don't know. We'll put him in the middle here. But I do think he's going to be somewhere in the middle. Like, he's really good. You know what? If they don't change a lot of stuff about Galio, I might just even put him all the way up. Yeah, I think he's actually going to be the best to start with, unless they nerf him. People might need to get good with him first, but I'll be bold and I'll say he will be the best mid laner because his scaling is ridiculous. But he may not be quite as good as Katarina or Anivia right now, but he's up there. He's really good. And he'll be really good in the top lane too. Okay, well, that's going to be it. Just a nice short 2.5 hour tier list video. My hair is looking obscene right now, but we'll go ahead and call it. So thank you very much. If you want to check out the channel, I do have a lot of other guides. I'll just show you here really quickly. Looks fine, I think. Hopefully I didn't forget to put something up there. But I just started doing coaching sessions, so look into that if you'd like. For a $20 donation, I will view your game, give you a ton of advice about it. I'll show you kind of what I'm doing here in one of these if you're interested. So I have the pre, the post game, and then I make a Google Doc of things that I recommend, like insights into your runes, insights, masteries, initial game plan. So what I think just based on looking at the champions in the game, how you should approach the game, what you should be doing, what to expect in team fights, what to watch out for. So just sort of what you should be thinking about before the game even starts. And then as the game unfolds, then I go through, write down a bunch of notes in a notebook, and then I come back, collate all those notes, and give you kind of the best sort of top 5 or so advice for how to improve your gameplay. So, and then I post it up, you get immortalized on the channel, people know that you're supporting the content that everyone else gets to enjoy. So it's kind of a cool moment of pride where you can say, yeah, I'm supporting this channel. There isn't a lot of other support content on YouTube. And so I like to do that for you, kind of just my reward for you helping me out. So I think it's really cool. You get the recognition, you get the individualized help, and you get to know that you're supporting the channel, and other people also get to watch it, so they get to learn stuff. So maybe they can't afford the $20 right now, or maybe they just can't afford donations at this point in their life. That's fine. I get it. I'm a really poor grad student also, right? So I get it. But because some people are able to help out and donate, then everybody can benefit by being able to watch these videos and just think, yeah, this is some stuff that I could really learn from too. So that's a new thing that I'm doing on the channel right now. I do have in-depth guides. These are free. Everything else is free except for the in-depth coaching. That's just a really premium kind of service that, you know, I just asked for a $20 donation, which is still pretty low. You know, if you think about like private dance lessons or private music lessons or whatever, that's a very competitive price for about an hour's worth of free tutoring, basically. Or not free, but hours worth of tutoring. In-depth guides. Right now I've got Janna, Lulu, Zyra. I am going to add on Tahm Kench. I'll try to add on a Galio one if I get some content on that too. That'd be a good idea. Maybe I can play a lot of Galio and then tomorrow and then make a guide for him. That'd be cool. And then I have playlists. So if you just want to watch a lot of Janna, a lot of Nautilus, a lot of Tahm Kench, Zyra, whoever your favorite, whomever your favorite support is, I'm constantly adding on new videos here, so stay tuned for that. And then all of the streams are cataloged right here if you want to go back and watch them. I'm going to add in some timestamps over the next few days or so to make it easier to navigate the streams. But I think those are always cool and useful to watch. I do stream every night starting at about 8:30. As you can see tonight, I'm going to be starting about 10 because I just really wanted to get this guide done because I know the patch is coming out tomorrow and people want to wake up with their new patch and think, what does the strategy professor think about this? So I try to have that ready to go on patch day, like immediately once the patch comes out. So I just wanted to get that done tonight. And it takes a long time. It takes a lot of research. You know, it's about 4 or 5 hours for me to research and then actually shoot the video. So it's a long time, but I know people really love it. And so I like to do that for you. And then I have topical guides here. So if you want to know how to lane better, how to rotate and roam, team composition, stuff like that, I've got a lot of that here for you. And I'm going to be adding on some more to this soon. And I'm going to try to name the titles things that are a little bit more clear, like what's going to be in the video. Because mastering the map is a cool name and everything, but people just won't know like what's actually in that video. So I'm going to try to do a little bit better with naming conventions and sort of organize this playlist a little bit better. I'm going to make the patch notes in their own separate playlist, and then this will be more of a topical playlist. Then I'm also going to add in donation games. I've had people, you know, donate $20 during a stream, and I'll play whichever champion you want in a normals. So if you want to see me play Master Yi support or Vayne support or whatever, just something fun and goofy, which I have had that. I have had people donate money to see Master Yi, Vayne, Cho'Gath, and just all sorts of other unorthodox supports. Or if you want to see me play your favorite AD carry and give commentary on that, or your favorite jungler and give commentary on that, then just feel free, come to a stream, donate. More than happy to help you out. And I'm going to make a playlist of those types of games too, so those people can get some recognition for helping the channel, and so people can kind of see some of these really goofy off-meta, you know, type of picks that might be fun, that maybe they want to try. Like the Teemo and the Cho'Gath videos got some pretty good views on them, so I know people like that. But I used to offer that in ranked, so I used to be willing to play those champions in ranked, but I've stopped doing that for a couple of reasons, and I know that I've gotten less requests to do them because of that. But the thing is, first of all, it slows down my climb, and I really need to try to get back to Diamond. I'm already having a hard enough time with the way that things are shaking out this season. I will get back, but it's taken long enough already to do that, and I need to get back there. It helps me get to higher quality games so that people can enjoy the streams more when I rank up. But an even more important consideration for me is an ethical one, where I don't want to like troll my team, right, in ranked, because people come in and they're giving it an honest effort. They want to play to win, right? And if I'm picking something like a Teemo support or a Shin, or not Shin, I guess Shin's moderately viable, but you know, like a Master Yi support or a Vayne support, I do try my hardest to win. But if I'm being honest with myself, and I think if other people are being honest too, that's not the optimal support to win a platinum ranked game, right? So I'm lowering the chances of my team to win, and I just feel really bad about it, you know, because I hate it when people troll me in games, and I want to try to win, even if they're trying their hardest. If they pick something that's like ridiculous, like an Urgot jungle or something, which I've seen that last little bit, it's just anti-fun, right? And people already have a hard enough time in League climbing and just keeping their cool and not freaking out. And so, you know, I just feel like doing the goofy champion like donation games in ranked is problematic on a lot of levels, but I am willing to do it in normals. So if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out too. Okay, and that's going to be it. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.